Let's do that.
And we'll just share it everywhere. And well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from Free State, Colorado, and welcome to this week's legislative live stream. We got Michael Vance. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Brandon. How about yourself?
Hey, doing great, doing great. How are you handling the time change here?
Oh man, I feel completely exhausted. For whatever reason, it did not go well with me. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Not complaining too much. I mean, it's at least it's on a Sunday, so it's not a work day necessarily. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm happy to see the sun still out right now.
Oh, yeah, it's very nice to see the sun still out. All things considered, I mean, where it's going to be very, especially for everyone who's going to be traveling um, into the sun. It's not going to be nearly as bad for people during their 5 o'clock commutes. So that's definitely a win for a lot of people. Plus, it's going to feel like you have more time in the day when you get home. Before bedtime. So it's definitely a little bit of it's definitely a nice little psychological boost as well.
Yeah, I don't mind it too much. I used to be more militant about it, about wanting to abolish daylight savings time, but it is what it is. It's just an hour. But yeah, it's nice being light later, like you said, getting home from work or just getting off for the day and being able to do more stuff in the evening here. So folks, please like, comment, share. Happy to have you. We're gonna have an action-packed evening tonight. So much to talk about. We got Senator Mark Baisley, the most pro-liberty senator in our state of Colorado, going to join us around 7:30. But before then, we're going to go ahead and start talking about some of the news. And yeah, I'm curious in the comments there, what do you all think about daylight savings time? Do you think we should get rid of it? Do you think we should go to standard time? Or what do you think? Because that's definitely a big topic of conversation. We saw the governor posting about it today, of course, and plenty of other people as well. So interesting stuff. Anything right off the bat, Michael, you wanted to bring up?
Uh, Not really. I just know that we've got a lot of bills. We're advancing through. We're halfway through the week. Excuse me. We're halfway through the legislative session, and that is definitely a win. There's typically about 18 weeks, and we're right up at week 9, so we're pretty much at the halfway moment. So appreciate everybody who's been fighting, who's been sticking with us, and um, we're we're halfway there. So if you've made it from January to now, it's going to be just about as long. That being said, we're going to see the biggest tricks. We're going to see the biggest games from here on out because they've already introduced a lot of bills and they've only got a little bit of time to discuss all these bills. They might kill some bills. They might also slip a lot of bills in you didn't even expect them to. You might have thought the bill was basically dead, and next thing you know, it's got a second life. So be very vigilant, especially with how many bills have already been introduced down at the Capitol. We've got a lot to cover, so appreciate you sticking around with us.
Definitely, this is go time here. We're halfway through the session, as Michael said, and yeah, it's all hands on deck. Some of the worst legislation we've seen all year has just been introduced this last week. There's so much to talk about, so much to get going on. So please, folks, if you're joining, leave a note in the chat, say hi. Please like the video, share it. It does wonders to get this information out there to people. We do this because we want people to be informed. We want people to have a voice, be informed, and participate in our local government. We will make Colorado a free state, but it starts with get involved with the state legislature ultimately on some level. We have to have an influence, we have to have a voice, and we have to do what we can. But with that, Michael, should we go ahead and jump into some of the news?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I'm going to pull up the slideshow here. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about tonight, folks. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff. And as I said, Mark Baisley is going to join us about 7:30 p.m. tonight. So stick around till then for sure. But yeah, we are in week 9, 505 bills, memorials, and resolutions. Oh my goodness, folks. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it definitely does. Had to choose a little bit of a daylight theme here for the for the slideshow since it's daylight saving time. So let's jump into it here. Scheduled tonight, 7 p.m. News of the week, 7:30. Senator Mark Baisley, 8 p.m. We're going to talk about the bills being heard this week. So these are really some bills we're going to talk about committee hearings, bills you can speak on virtually or in person. And then at 8:30, talk about some of the updates on the biggest bills of the year. We went through and updated this whole sheet slideshow tonight. So lots of information. This is the most up-to-date information you're going to find leading into the week about what's happening here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and record this so maybe we can get some clips throughout the week. All right, folks. So if you can't stay the whole night, this is some of the priorities here. Take a screenshot and get this information out there. These are some of the biggest priorities, the top priorities for the most important legislation going through the state capitol this week. So these are the bills to watch. We're going to talk about more than these and get a little bit more depth as we get into the night. But I just wanted to, right off the bat, let you know Monday in the House Finance Committee at 1:30 p.m., House Committee Room 112. That's on the first floor there. Three horrible bills. This is part of the package of bills released by House Democrats to basically raise taxes here in Colorado. We're going to get you to the exact dollar amounts. So, what they're doing is decoupling Colorado's tax code from the federal government. It's a de facto tax raise. So, a lot of corporations, a lot of employers, a lot of people who are running companies here in Colorado are going to end up paying higher taxes because of these three bills. Definite job killers, more regulations, and ultimately just more money being taken out of the private economy and given to the state ultimately. Also on Monday in the House State Affairs Committee, 1:30 p.m. in the Old State Library. We have a big day for parental rights and those kind of issues. House Bill 1128, the limitation on gender transition procedure claims from Representative DeGraff. We'll get into more details later. Great bill. House Bill 1083, Protect Female Sports Act from Senator Representative Bottoms, another great bill. And then 1243, the regulation of abortion clinics as well. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth, but just want to highlight these for you because they are being heard tomorrow. Any thoughts here, Michael?
Yeah, what's I think it's interesting that all these bills are basically being heard at once. So it's really difficult to get down. If you're not at the Capitol, it can be very difficult to testify on these. So some people are just going to be stuck with choosing your set of bills that you either want to support or you want to really fight against. Um, but if you can work with somebody, you could possibly have two different people set up, and this is just a strategy. If you could possibly have a friend go with a friend, you go to, let's say, for example, you want to go to the House State Civic Military and Veterans Affairs to support these bills that are to protect kids. And then your friend can go to the House Finance Committee in the Old State in HCR 112, and they can be in that room. And then you guys can be communicating back and forth and let each other know when one of you actually gets called up to testify. So that way you can possibly sign up for all six bills and you guys have a shot at testifying on every single one of these bills and really do what you possibly can to get your voice heard as much as humanly possible. It's not a guarantee because sometimes they might call two people up for two different bills at the exact same time in these individual rooms. But if it gives you an opportunity to maximize your voice down at the Capitol, so if you can come up with a way or come up with a friend or go with a friend and you guys can just communicate with each other. Another option is to be in one House committee but have your phone with you, possibly put your AirPods in or some sort of headphones. And so that way you can listen to what's going on at the other committee and listen to both and be in one committee while listening to the other. Just that way, if your name does get called in the other committee, you can run up. So run up to speak at the other hearing. So that's one. Those are just some options I wanted to throw out there for people. Just that way you can maximize your opportunity and be as efficient as possible when you're down at the Capitol.
And definitely, and yeah, and if you're doing remote testimony as well, makes it a little bit easier. If you got a couple monitors, you can see what's going on. But really important legislation, and I hate to say it, but we kind of know in the State Affairs Committee what's going to happen to those three bills. It's still important, obviously, to have a voice. Still important to get this information out there and to have your voice heard. But at the same, and we really know on the House Finance. Don't get me wrong, we know those bills are going to pass. We know the House affairs are going to are going to fail. So, it's important to pay attention to both of them and get involved. But ultimately, the bills that are going to pass, and we really need to make a stink on as well, because it needs to get in the media narrative and get out there to the public and the voters how Democrats in our state government are raising our taxes and making it harder for employers to operate here in Colorado. Also, later in the week on Wednesday, the Senate Bill 97, the decriminalize adult commercial sexual activity, the decriminalize prostitution bill, is going to be on 1:30 p.m. in the old Supreme Court. Then on Thursday, there in Senate Finance is this horrible bill, which I'm going to get into big time later. Senate Bill 135 basically would eliminate our TABOR refunds forever. It would eliminate our taxpayers' Bill of Rights refunds. We'd never get them again. Schools would get way more money, even though they have more money than ever, and more money to go to our state government. Absolutely horrible bill. I have a video with Natalie Menton coming out tomorrow on that bill, Senate Bill 135. So definitely catch that. She did a deep dive, read all of the bill, dug into it and really understood what's happening. And yeah, it's a permanent theft of our TABOR rebates, basically. A massive expansion in government. Bad news, folks. Perfect, perfect. All right. And then hey, if you're up in northern Colorado on Monday, March 9th, come and join me at the Far Regional Library on 61st Avenue in Greeley. I'm going to be doing a legislative update. So I got a slideshow put together. Of course, you're going to have a lot of the information you hear every week from us here, but getting it out there in person, an in-person event to try and get this information out to more people and really get engaged with our local community. It's so important, especially in an election year, that we get people engaged and informed and aware of what's happening. So if you're up in Greeley or the Greeley area, please come in and join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. It will be recorded, so we'll put it out on video at some point later, but it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. All right, let's jump into some of the news of the week. So, what happened at the state legislature this last week? A lot of things happened. Busy week, of course. But let's look at our updates from the biggest bills of last week. So, these are the bills we highlighted last week. Of course, last Monday, March 2nd was the big gun day at the state capitol. We had House Bill 1072 killed. That was the bill to eliminate red flag gun confiscation orders. 1126, a bad bill, basically making it impossible for family-owned individual federal firearm license dealers to operate in Colorado. House Bill 1265, the National Law Enforcement Gun Tracing Bill did pass, of course, and Senate Bill 4 has made it out of the Senate and the House, did pass in the House committee. So a lot of just what we expected last Monday, a lot of bad gun legislation went through. The good gun bill got killed, of course. Some exciting news, though, last Tuesday in the House Judiciary Committee, House Bill 1012 was killed. This was a horrible bill. It was the fair market pricing bill, basically saying that, if a hot dog at the stadium should cost the same as a hot dog at the street corner, that a beer in the stadium should cost the same as a beer at a bar down the street. And that bill did get killed. That bill would have destroyed fairs and events in Colorado, would have totally put a lot of people out of work, and it was a massive intrusion into our private sector. So thankfully, that bill did get killed. That was great news. And we had another horrible bill get killed as well, Senate Bill 107, the Colorado Open Records Act bill. This bill would have restricted or made it a little bit more difficult for people to use CORA, the Colorado Open Records Act, to get information, would have made it more expensive, would have given the government more time to get information out to us. So thankfully, those two bills died. So it was awesome news. Michael, what are your thoughts on the what happened last week with some of these big bills?
Uh, I'm getting concerned about our gun rights and our Second Amendment. We've seen over the years, we've seen a lot of people get very, very passionate about our gun rights, come to the Capitol, and I'm not seeing as many people come down to the Capitol this year. And I think that's affecting what's happening down at the legislature. We're still seeing a lot of the main folks down there coming down to the Capitol. We're seeing new groups come down to the Capitol, but we're just not seeing the numbers come down to the Capitol to support our Second Amendment rights. And unfortunately, that being said, we're also seeing the good news is we're not seeing as many of the commie mommies come. They're still there. Moms demand action is still coming. People from every town are still coming, but they're not even coming in as big of a force. And I would say that their numbers have been even more affected or have dwindled even more than the gun rights individuals who support our gun rights. Um, so overall, that's so what I'm trying to say is while the ratio is better, these days, a lot of times we're seeing it's 10-1 in terms of people who are pro gun grabbing versus anti grabbing. So anti gun grabbing, but the numbers just overall aren't there. And in turn, because we're not seeing as many people who support gun rights come down to the Capitol, we're seeing a lot of this stuff get killed. So that's disappointing. That being said, I'll talk about this more later. Um, the we there is hope within the gun community, and I know that the fire is not died within the gun community either. So there is still hope there. We just need to do what we can to kindle that fire. The good news is we can see we still see have certain pieces of hope within the Colorado legislature. We were able to kill core restrictions. We were also able to kill certain um, economic levers that were going to harm businesses, particularly 10-12. I mean, they seem to love to go after perceived price gouging every single chance they get, when at the end of the day, price gouging issues just make things more restrictive and less affordable for business to even offer to the public. So therefore, we lose our options. So happy that these bills were killed, but I'm also very disappointed in what's going on with our gun rights. And that was probably that was my biggest takeaway with what's going on down at the Capitol this week.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Two major victories, though. We got to celebrate those. So that's good stuff. Also
Mhm.
this last week, oh my gosh, we had what's her name here crying in the well, basically saying, that because a sheriff called her an idiot, basically called her stupid because she was at an event. This a legislator was at an event holding this sign saying ICE is a domestic terror group. Law enforcement was sharing this image around and being like, this lady is a complete idiot. And she got up in front of the whole house and did a little cry and this and that. Representative Brooks did a great job of calling her out, but it was ridiculous. Her up there saying that, law enforcement trying to enforce immigration law are terrorists. And she got called out by law enforcement, of course, had to go cry. It was absolutely ridiculous moment. And it's like these people, you can't even take them seriously. It's absolutely ridiculous. What do you think
She,
about what happened there, Michael?
yeah, she FA'd and then she FO'd and then she cried about effing owed, you know? Um it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I could not believe that she had the audacity to whine and moan and complain. And I was really happy to see Max Brooks publicly call her out. I was happy to see in retort Jarvis Caldwell go down to the well to speak out against this crap, because this is not the only time we've seen points of personal privilege being abused down at the well this year. We've seen this happen frequently by amongst the left, especially a lot of progressives. They've been uh, they've been abusing certain rules within the legislature to just kind of talk about themselves and make certain things partisan that shouldn't have been partisan.
Definitely. So if people miss this, Garfield County Sheriff Lou Valerio, basically they posted this picture of her, our House District 57 state rep, Elizabeth Velasco. Aren't you proud of her? POS. They called her a POS, the sheriff did. They responded saying she's garbage, absolute lunacy, because she's there holding a sign up that basically says ICE is a domestic terror group. So, you have law enforcement who are like, this lady's insane. She is garbage. She's a POS and absolute lunacy. And then she had to get up in front of the state capitol and cry about it, of course, because now she's a victim and everybody had to rally behind her and this and that. And oh my gosh, how mean people are when she calls them terrorists. I mean, absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Just the backstory there. Unfortunately, we did have one of the worst bills of the year pass out of the state house this last week. And on third reading, you get this roll call vote where it's all publicized here. House Bill 1144, the anti 3D printing gun bill, absolutely insane. Now they did amend the bill to get rid of the part where you're a criminal if you just possess the digital files. But if you distribute digital files on how to manufacture a firearm, you are still a criminal. The highest level misdemeanor, and if you do it twice, you're a felon and can't own guns anymore. Absolutely ridiculous. We had 25 legislators vote against it. And so folks, we had some Democrats actually vote against it. Some of the Democrats who are more in the swing districts like Bob Marshall, Tisha Morrow, and a few others there who actually voted against this, which was really interesting because most of the time the Democrats are all aboard the gun control train. But yeah, 40 to 25, and there's only 22 Republicans in the state house, so three Democrats joined them, and yeah, unfortunately this bill did pass. It's going to be on its way to the Senate now. Definitely encourage people reach out to the senators, show up at committee, and reach out to those committee members ahead of time and really tell them how bad this bill is. Any thoughts on this, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I find this a massive violation of our freedom of speech. I mean, the idea that I can't share or discuss digital files, I mean, that at the end of the day, that it should still be protected speech from the on a First Amendment level. I don't understand how so many Democrats can support a bill like this. I mean, I get that they love gun control, but the ramifications from a First Amendment level on what this will do, particularly with the government coming down and telling citizens what they can and can't discuss, is absolutely unacceptable. Historically, Democrats have protected our First Amendment rights, but clearly they don't care. And it's also interesting to see um, what they will choose to support. A book like Genderqueer, it can be absolutely distributed amongst our public school libraries, but 3D digital files can now need to be regulated. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, ridiculous, totally ridiculous, totally embarrassing. And then, of course, the Senate Democrats did pass Senate Bill 43 on third reading out of the Senate, so that makes its way to the House now. The firearm barrel registration bill, saying you can only buy a firearm barrel at an FFL gun store, and you can only and they have to register you. They have to keep a record of who bought this firearm barrel. It's absolutely ridiculous what barrel you bought, and of course, the idea is to chill gun ownership. I mean, ultimately, and this was only a 19 to 16 vote, folks, and this shows that with it picking up 3, 4 seats in the state senate this year, this election, it is possible that we could stop the bad bills like this. I mean, 19 to 16, that's a very close vote in the state senate. So there was some Democrats who were like, yeah, this is a little ridiculous, maybe a little bit too far. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it just shows that we're really not that far off ultimately. And I think that's one of the hopeful messages here is, have some optimism out there, folks. If we just flip a couple seats, I mean, when the votes are this close with the Democrat majority, there's some Democrats there that maybe, are a little bit more moderate than otherwise. So I think that's some good news there. Any thoughts on Senate Bill 43, Michael, and what happened in the Senate this week?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing these gun bills pass. It's definitely a disappointment. I think a year ago we might not have seen this bill pass, but we're seeing that this bill definitely passed in the Senate this year, which is concerning because I feel like your best shot of stopping a gun bill is going to be in the Senate, not necessarily the House. That being said, our best fighters and our strongest two-way advocates, a lot of the times, with a couple of exceptions, are in the House as a whole. So very, very disappointing to see that this one actually passed. And I'd love to know where some of our weak spots are inside the Senate. So that way, if there is a chance of us being able to stop some of these future gun bills, who are Democrats who are going to be a bit more soft, um, because I know sometimes Exum can sometimes be a bit more soft. But at the same time, he might turn around and support something similar he'll support something like Senate Bill 3. But if you put enough pressure on Exum, he'll back away. Somebody else like Nick Hendrickson, excuse me. He has been a little bit more lenient towards gun freedom versus some other progressive Democrats, especially somebody like the old grave dancer Tom Sullivan or Julie Gonzalez, the Senadora. So
Yeah, definitely.
I,
And
yeah,
sorry, go
go ahead.
ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say. So if we can really come up with a coordinated effort for everybody to put pressure on those specific on Democrats who are a bit more soft on gun freedom, I'd really appreciate. Yeah, I'd really love to get those names out there so that way we can possibly stop some of the tyranny going down at the Capitol this session.
Well, and I think it's so important here. I just highlighted Benvenidez. So Adrian Benvenidez is the vacancy replacement for Daphne Michelson Janae. She was sworn in on the morning of March 2nd. And then and March 2nd, later in the day, around noon, here she is voting for this egregious gun control bill on a 3 vote margin, basically. So I mean it's like, wow, wow, you have somebody chosen by 20 people in a back room somewhere, party and Democrat Party insiders, and then here we go, one of the deciding votes basically to pass this egregious gun control. So I just wanted to point that out because I think that's such an interesting dynamic here with these vacancy appointments. Of course, on Monday too was the big RMGO gun rally. They had the Gun Rights Washington guy out there, doing a little speech and showing up. Yeah, 5 gun bills total being heard on floor and committee. So just want to highlight that since we had Catching from RMGO join us last week. So just wanted to provide a little bit of a recap there. And then, yeah, House Bill 1012, the concert price control bill, failed in committee. Phenomenal, phenomenal, actually. Huge, huge swing there. Only Bacon, Garcia, Marbury, and Zokai voted for it. So we had Democrats, Carter, Clifford, and Espinoza all vote against it, and joining the 4 Republicans on this committee. So it was phenomenal to see this bill fail, and it just shows that there is a little bit of a potential to stop some of the most insane bills down at the state capitol. So really exciting to see that House Bill 1012 failed. Good stuff. Hey everybody just a shout out to everybody in the chat. We got so many people there. Break the Chains Media, Street DJ, Fly Pilot Explorer, Just Jimmy. So many people out there. Simone, and I always know I'm saying your name wrong. But yeah, a great group in the chat there. Please share as well. 2 other bills I wanted to bring up here before our guest joins us here, and that is uh, this. Oh my gosh, Senate Bill 51 was insane. This is the bill, basically, folks, that's going to require your birthday to set up when you set up a phone or a computer. So I think it puts us on the path to digital ID. We only had 7 legislators in the state Senate. 7 out of the 35 voted against it. And one of them is our guest tonight. So I want to hear more about this from Senator Mark Baisley. We also had Linda Zamora Wilson, a previous guest who's been phenomenal down at the state capitol. But we actually had some people running for higher office, even Tony Exum, who's in that swing seat, as Michael mentioned earlier, Julie Gonzalez. People vote for this horrible bill. I mean, this is putting us on the path to digital ID. Sure, that's not in this bill now, but they're still asking a state requirement, a government requirement to collect your birthday. And then, we know what's going to happen a year or two from now. They're going to say, well, everybody was lying. That didn't work. So, it's not just the birthday. We also need an ID. We also need this and that. And folks, I listened to the entire testimony from everybody who showed up to support that bill, and it is insane. You got to listen to it. There are people in Colorado who are begging our state government to have photo mandated and facial recognition for accessing the internet, accessing computer. These people are showing up at committee hearings saying this bill is bad, but we want it because it's not strict enough. It's absolutely insane, folks. But we are on this path to digital ID. It's happening all across the country. California, Washington, so many other states are pushing this at the exact same time. It's this coordinated effort to strip us of our ability to buy software, basically, and access computers without these government controls to put controls over our information in the system. So horrible, horrible bill. And then Senate Bill 107 was the Cora bill, which did fail. We only had 2 of the senators vote for it, and that was William Lindstedt and Republican Rod Pelton. Again, Linda Zamora Wilson, she was the deciding vote basically, and helped kill that bill. So thankful we have her there. I could think of somebody who ran against her in that vacancy appointment, and if she was in office, she would have voted for this. I can pretty much guarantee. So we got really lucky with Senator Linda Zamora Wilson there being able to kill the Cora bill, and then also vote against Senate Bill 105. Any thoughts on these 2 bills, Michael?
Yeah, I was extremely happy to see the Cora bill get killed. Um, you talk about Linda Zamora Wilson, and I mean she's been an absolute stalwart. Go check out her Liberty score on Liberty scorecard. She is right up there with Baisley as one of the top senators in the legislature this year. Just vote after vote after vote, committee after committee after committee. She's bringing the correct argument time after time after time, and she votes the right way every single time. So I'm extremely pleased with what we've seen from Melinda Zamora Wilson. Once again, and we don't have to, and as of now, we don't have to worry about Cora uh, I would say Cora protection my is probably my one of my biggest bright spots of the legislative session this year, just because of how people consistently. While we do have a lot of people trying to take back Cora or strip down Cora year after year after year, we see people are consistently fighting back, pushing back, and I'm really excited for the ballot initiative that we very well could see in the 2026 election to help give Cora a bit more support.
Definitely. We do have our special guest this evening. We have Senator Mark Baisley. Sir, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Very happy to have you here. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Brandon. It's always a joy to get with you. And Michael, good to see you both.
You as well, sir.
Yeah, you've been doing an incredible job down at the state legislature. Definitely one of our most pro-liberty senators down there. So really excited to have you on the show tonight and hear about what's been happening. So I guess first off, what would you say, Senator, is one of the most important things people need to know about what's been happening in the state government?
Oh, oh, what a great question. Well, I guess the biggest thing to understand is that this is seen by the Democrats and us on the Republican side of the aisle as well as perhaps the swan song for the single party rule in Colorado. So that's one reason why we're seeing some of the more outlandish things being introduced. I mean, they've been introducing outlandish things for a while, um, but legalizing prostitution as an example, that's the sort of thing that they want to, just get in there because they are suspecting that next year there will be a governor that would veto that bill, or maybe even there would not be a majority by the Democrats in both chambers, and so they would not be able to pass it through to the governor. But anyway, so we're going to see some of these things like that would just make your head spin. You would not think you'd ever see something like that, but this year you will. So that's the biggest thing to tell folks about.
Uh, Senator Baisley, I really appreciate you coming on. You have a busy schedule right now, running for U.S. Senate as well as being a senator amidst this psychotic legislative session. 500 bills introduced in only 9 weeks is absolutely insane. My question to you is, with everything going on, you've still introduced 9 bills so far this legislative session. One, I'm kind of curious. We hear all the time you can only introduce 5 bills, you can only introduce 5 bills, but you have been able to get your name down as a prime sponsor in 9 different bills. I was wondering if you could kind of help explain what the rules are so that way we could uh, we can kind of help understand a little bit more how you're able to get your um, name on so much legislation to possibly advance through to become a bill and signed into law by the governor.
Sure. So, yeah, we were each allotted 5 bills per year, which is way too many, by the way. I mean, I think it ought to be like three, maybe one, and allow more if the bill is to remove existing statute because we have way too many laws micromanaging our lives. But the rule is, generally speaking, one bill per or 5 bills per legislator. So that's both the House members and the Senate members. Um, then there are other bills that come along where there's a fellow state senator will ask you, hey, can you sign on and become a co-prime sponsor with me on this bill? And if you believe in it, then you say, sure, I'll add my name, but that would cost you one of your five. So that's the typical response is, I'd love to join you, but let's get permission for me to not have that count against my five allotment, since that's your bill and I'll sign on as the number two. So the in every bill, that's an important kind of position. So there's the prime sponsor and then a co-prime sponsor who is the second name on that list. Now there might be 12 sponsors, co-sponsors of that bill, but the co-prime sponsors are the first two names on that bill. So anyway, but that will cost you one of your five unless leadership, meaning the majority leader and or the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate gives permission for you to add that and not count against it. The other way you get extra bills, two other ways. One is if the other chamber, so if a House member creates a bill and then asks you to be the Senate sponsor, then that does not count against your Senate sponsor count, that you're five. And likewise, in the reverse, if I introduce a Senate bill, then I'll of course seek House sponsors to carry it along if it makes it through the Senate, and then they will become the House prime sponsor. That does not count against their five. And then lastly, there are committees, all the many committees. There's a dozen, what we call the committees of reference, where bills are referred to those topical committees like education and transportation and health and insurance and that sort of thing. Those are the topical committees of reference. Anyway, those committees and the other permanent standing committees like the Joint Technology Committee and the Joint Budget Committee, they can also introduce bills. And when they introduce a bill as a committee, then that bill needs to have a member sponsorship. So that does not count against your five as well. So that's how it kind of builds up. Long answer
I
to your
appreciate.
question.
No, I really appreciate that clarification because we've heard for years that a member of the legislature can only have five bills, and then we would still see people have more than those allotted five bills. So I really appreciate the clarification on that. I think that helps out a lot of us. Um, and a quick follow up among your bills, I know some of them have already been postponed indefinitely, killed in
Mhm,
committee.
mhm.
Of your bills that are still remaining, uh, I'm kind of curious, what do you have the most hope for advancing all the way to the governor's office?
So um, I have two bills. All three of my bills that I have introduced have been shot in the head and are bleeding on the sidewalk right now. So I have two more openings, and I'll have to at this point get permission for late introduction of the bill. But and I will do that with for at least one bill. I was out in recently in Nucla, Colorado, and I had not known where Nucla was before, but it's almost at the Utah border on the western slope, west of Montrose. And I was out there campaigning, and they asked if I would come visit them. That was one of those wonderful, memorable, heartwarming visits because, typically I'll go talk to a group and there's 30 to maybe 75 people that I'm talking to, or maybe even more to in a crowd of folks, town hall, campaign stop kind of thing. And then, but here's the case where um, we drove out. It was a hour and a half drive, hour and 30-minute maybe drive to Nucla from Montrose where I was staying. And when I get there, there was a crowd of five people. And so instead of standing up and giving them some inspirational speech, hopefully, we just sat around a table, and it was in a very cool setting. First, they fed me. We show up. We first start out at a house at a home. There was an Airbnb that was being run by one of the people out there, and they just fed this incredible food that was like contributed by like three or four different people from around the city, the town, and so good. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I took it home, took some home. Um, and then we walked a couple doors down to the Museum of Nuclear Energy. And so we go in there and sit at a table right in the middle of that, where I saw for the first time in person yellow cake and things like that, components of nuclear uh, energy. That town, Nucla, so named because they are a uranium mine town and other elements, but uranium was the big deal for them. And as we just sat and talked, I did very little talking and just a whole lot of listening. And they explained to me the history of the town, and the town looked pretty deserted actually. And they were hoping for a bigger turnout, but there were hardly any cars driving or anything else. There's just not much motion going on there. Anyway, they explained how the state had shut them down, their uranium mines, and they wanted to resume that. And they saw themselves as uranium miners, saw themselves as miners, pulling these elements out of the ground and putting them to work. And as they explained, and no surprise to me nor you, anybody listening in that nuclear power is coming back. Uranium is in demand, and they've got the supply underground, so they want to get back to work. So of course you want to get them back to work. So I asked them what was stopping them. They said specifically the Colorado Department of Health and Environment was preventing them from moving forward. And I said, well, let's just call her. I said, I know I work with these agencies. I'll call the legislative um, person, the legislative liaison is her title. So I just called her right then and there, and we got on the phone with her. She's actually a very wonderful person. I go to battle all the time with CDPHE with that department. We've had some enormous fights and we've had some partnerships, but I have a very strong working relationship with them. So she responds right away, and I explain to them the situation, and she goes, well, I know I'm familiar with this. The problem is the state laws, the state Colorado state statute does not align with the federal government statute on this. I go, so if we could get this Colorado statute to align with the federal government statute, they could proceed. And she goes, yes. And I said, well, that's what I do for a living. So let's put a bill together. So since fortunately I have an opening bill, she and I are working on that together now. So that could put some people to work and get some uranium out of the ground and put that to work. And so, yeah, that's just one of those, you know what, seriously, of all the things that you do, you debate, you embarrass the Democrats wherever they deserve it, and you make some advances. When you can help people to just sustain themselves, to have the dignity of a profession and care for themselves, that is that's so gratifying. I'd do that all day if I could just focus on one thing. That would be creating opportunities for people to put themselves to work, create a good or service that other people will buy, and just be a blessing to everybody else around them and take care of their family. That's anyway, that's a big moment for me.
Oh, that is awesome. That is so exciting. And yeah, that's some of the wins we've seen in recent years in Colorado and the state government, the state legislature was the nuclear bill and
Yeah.
getting Colorado back on the road. So hopefully this is an easy yes for the Democrats in the legislature, or at least it moves the ball forward a little bit and get this community some much needed jobs and get us back in that the ballpark of being a leader because Colorado definitely needs that.
We do indeed. I want to give a shout out to the state senator who really deserves the praise on that, and that's State Senator Larry Liston from El Paso County. He's been pushing the nuclear power mantra for probably 8 years, and he finally broke through last year, and he got Senator Dylan Roberts, and I don't recall who else, to join him and to declare that nuclear power is a viable renewable energy source. And they have, of course, been just resistant to that for so long. It's just a religious thing for them, not a logical thing. And but now they're open. But Larry just never let up. He had all these, and he's still doing this. The whole lunch lessons, brown bag seminars and so on. He does those pretty frequently, and people finally started believing it. So it's very cool.
That's awesome, and I'm just curious as a follow-up to that, you've been in the state legislature for some time now, Senator Baisley, both in the House and the Senate. And I mean, we always wonder how things can change, right? How can we make an impact? How can we make a difference? How can we move that ball forward? So I'd love to hear about that a little bit more in terms of, Senator Liston hosting these luncheons and learn-ins and having people come and learn. I mean, do you see that as kind of a viable path forward for legislators? Maybe that's a lesson some newly elected legislators can learn and say, hey, your bill might fail your first year there. Don't give up, but work on maybe shifting the knowledge of the other legislators you work with. I mean, is that a good viable strategy you'd suggest to maybe some of our freshman legislators?
It is. Now I know you're going to think that there's no tie in here, but I'm going to take a sip of this wine. Now there is a tie in this. So this wine is a Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Valley. Um, I enjoy my red wines, and this is the name of the company that makes this is Reputation, and it's cheap, $14 on sale at Costco right now. For $14 it's been marked down. So anyway, I highly recommend. So, reputation. So, this is important that we interact with each other, especially those folks on the other side of the aisle, with respect for them individually, and beat the snot out of them for their terrible philosophical, worldview positions. So, what happens is, um, let me give a little metaphor. So, um, years ago, when I was in the house still, uh, I had just seemed like one after the other Democrat coming across the aisle and inviting me to sign on as a co-prime sponsor on their bill. And after the fourth one, within a couple of days, I asked, it was Megan Froelich that came by, and she goes, she's still in the house. She says, "Hey, Senator Representative, Mark, can you sign on and be my co-sponsor on this bill?" And I go, "Megan, what's going on?" I said, "Just, I'm getting a lot of folks on your side of the aisle." She goes, "Well," she goes, "your reputation is such that you beat up every bill that is unconstitutional." She goes, "You beat it up if it gets there." And she goes, "So the talk in our side of the aisle behind closed doors is if we can get Baisley to sign on to our bill, then that signals to all the Republicans that it withstands constitutional muster." And I said, "I'll take that rep." So anyway, so I have a standard. I ask 5 questions of every bill, and I think I've shared that with you before, Brandon. But it's the 5 questions are: would it create an unconstitutional law? Um, does it reflect American founding principles, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness? In God we trust, e pluribus unum, liberty. Um, third, should this even be a law? Because sometimes there's a really good idea, it's attractive, it could be nice to have and all that, but which it should not come with the force of government. Um, Fourth, how does wisdom inform a clash of rights? Sometimes a bill advances one person's rights and perhaps even their unalienable rights at the expense of someone else's rights. These things happen. It happens more frequently than you might think. But so that takes wisdom because you have to, in many cases, decide which right is superior to the other right. So I'll give you an example of life versus liberty in the life choice, in the life liberty choice, abortion choice. That's the prime example. And then lastly, what do my constituents want? And I frankly rarely get to the point where I got to go ask my constituents. I have, but it's only been a couple of times. Anyway, because that's unknown for me, I have that written up on a chalkboard in my office, and people see that, and several other uh, legislators have adopted it. So because of that, when I reject someone else's bill, they don't take it personally. And I didn't go into this with that plan, but that has been something I've come to realize that they don't see me attacking them for being crazy liberals. They see me as attacking their bill for being outside of what's a good idea, what's constitutional, or what should be law, and so on. So, so that I just highly recommend for new folks coming in is create a standard. You can start with mine. Representative Stephanie Luck, who's my favorite legislator, I always say I like her more than me. She's amazing. Is But she has like 10 points, 10 questions she asks of every bill. So adopt something that works for you and just communicate that because especially if you're going to vote no against a fellow Republican's bill, then I go talk to them and I'll say, "Hey, sorry, Ralph, whatever. um, I'm gonna be voting against your bill today because it does not pass number 3 or whatever." I just and sometimes they change my mind, if I'm wrong. Because I've been wrong before. That's happened. And but I'll share with them why I'm going to vote against their bill. And they usually don't take it personal. So that's yeah, that's a good way to, I think, uh, within decorum to hold up principle.
Oh, Michael, we can't hear you.
Oh, perfect. Uh, how about now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Per Perfect. So, Senator Baisley, you come from an aerospace engineer background.
Yeah.
I know in not necessarily I believe you don't have any aerospace inside your district itself, but I believe you have some pretty close to your district in Littleton, etc. I'm kind of curious how that background has influenced you, and if any of your background still kind of if it touches what you do in the Senate today still, and how you navigate those waters.
Well, au contraire to the whether I have aerospace in my district, I actually have the headquarters of Lockheed Martin Space Systems in my district.
Oh, I thought it was next to it. That's interesting.
So it used to be next to it when I was serving in the House. It was I missed it by a couple hundred feet. But now that I represent the south half of Jefferson County, then yeah, the people who brought me to Colorado 37 years ago, whatever, back then it was Martin Marietta, nowadays Lockheed Martin. Anyway, but yeah, Lockheed Martin Space System headquarters is located there at the south end of Wadsworth in Jefferson County, just right across the South Platte River from Douglas County. And yeah, that's I'm thrilled to have them in my district. A real quick aside, if I may, there when I was serving in the House, uh, the uh, the legislative liaison or communications guy for Lockheed Martin once introduced me in a public setting while I was in the House. He introduced me as their state representative, and I didn't correct him out loud there. I just waited till the after all the speeches were done. I walk over and go, "Hey Joe, I don't actually represent you. I just miss it by a few hundred feet here because I get up to the river there." And he goes, "Yeah, but our representative doesn't even know we exist." He goes, "So could you kind of adopt us?" Anyway, I'm going, "Heck yeah." Anyway, so yeah, now I'm really thrilled to represent them, and they even invite me to their launches out in Florida. I I can go to any launch that I want to. I have to pay my own way, but they'll let me come into the close in spots and go get close to the rocket and see it before it launches and all that. So that's very cool. So yeah, as when I worked there, I was the software integration lead on the Titan rocket. So yeah, it's in my gut, my soul. I love all the aerospace stuff. Um, but what's funny about this, I have to give major kudos to Lockheed Martin because they they are present in a big way in the state capitol. I'm the co-chair of the aerospace what do we call it, caucus. Um, I share that with a Democrat, the position. He never shows up to the meetings, and so I always just run them. And Lockheed Martin always shows up. United Launch Alliance shows up. Several other um, companies that are located in Colorado, aerospace companies show up, and we get together about once a month during session, and we try to just really. There's a whole lot of learning, and lately it's been very exciting, very relevant because they're teaching us all about the mission to the moon, the Artemis launches, and so on. So we're learning all about that. They benefit nothing from telling us all about that and from participating as much as they do, and they participate wholly in the caucus and in these meetings and coming to the Capitol. In fact, there's going to be Aerospace Day coming to the Capitol just later this month. We as a state do not buy satellites from them. We don't buy launches from them. They are just community people that want to be understood and known and appreciated here in their community. So they just get involved, and I applaud them in a big way for all of that. And by the way, we lose companies like Palantir that I'm sure you know about that we just lost because we show something other than appreciation. So I'm telling Lockheed Martin all the time how much we love and appreciate them and value them as a corporate citizen in Colorado. And they get very involved in the local education community. They're very ever present in University of Colorado and in Metro State Denver. Anyway, but we're not their customer. We're just their neighbor. And So but we need to keep them here. It's hundreds of thousands of jobs in Colorado. It's a big part of our community, and of course, with the military bases, the Space Force bases around Space Force Academy or Air Force Academy that produces the Space Force grads and so on. That's just a part of our community and our ecosystem, and so I interact with them a lot. I'm at the Air Force Academy quite often, and just try to always be familiar with the leadership. You know, they change that out every couple of years, and so I always try to get to know them, and I try to stay current with what's going on with the big companies that are all around the metro area. Just real important for all of our employment.
Wow. No, definitely applaud you for that. We definitely need to appreciate the employers here in Colorado because, yeah, the legislature unfortunately has been doing a good job of chasing them out of the state or shutting down the small businesses, and it's totally a shame. And I just really hope we get more people paying attention to what's happening under the Gold Dome, so they can, hopefully have a voice and feel like, hey, we need to participate a little bit more as citizens, and whether that's a corporate citizen like a big company which Lockheed sounds like they're doing, but maybe other ones across the state as well that could use their voice and try and reach out and have some impact because unfortunately we have some bad bills going through, and I'm so curious, Senator Baisley, two really controversial bills passed the state Senate this last week, and you were voting no on them, and I always appreciate that about you. You're one of the most consistent pro-liberty voices, and I know your five questions you ask there is part of the
Mhm.
reason why. But we had a Senate Bill 43, the firearm barrel registration bill, pass, and it was 19 to 16. I think that's one of the most things that gives me optimism. Is like that was a close vote, folks. Like for the viewers, like that was a razor thin margin ultimately. So I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about that. Maybe the sign that it has for the potential, as you started the interview off with, that Colorado can change, and maybe we are on this cusp of changing. And then the other big bill was the Senate Bill 51. Only seven senators, you and two other Republicans, and then a handful of Democrats there voted against it. But this is the bill that would require a person's birthday, a person's date of birth or age when setting up a new operating system. So that's a computer or a phone. I'd love to hear your perspective on both of those, especially because you were one of the few that voted no on both. And I just really appreciate that. Any insight or context with Senate Bill 43 and Senate Bill 51?
Sure, I'll start out with 51. Uh, for one, it violated the principle for me of government imposing itself onto private industry, and but also, there's some probably unintended, but I'll say unintended consequences that come from knowing the ages of people. So ostensibly, it's there to protect the younger folk from being exposed to things that they ought not to be seeing, and so on. However, if you're telling the pedos, hey, here's the ages of people, and then it narrows down their focus. Anyway, everything about that bill seemed yucky to me, and I get the altruistic idea, but you know what? Rarely does altruism coming from that side of the aisle reflect any wisdom. It just really rare. So that was I did not give a whole lot of thought to that bill. I just looked at all over that and I go, this seems like a stupid idea. No. And so I moved on to studying other things. But on Senate Bill 43, um, so for everyone listening in, this is to regulate gun barrels, that single component of firearms, of the barrel specifically. And ostensibly, again, don't get an opportunity to use that word a whole lot, but ostensibly that was to protect against 3D printed firearms that then would still need a barrel. And so let's regulate the barrel since we can't reach into everybody's home who's got a 3D printer and can build all the other components for a firearm. So let's regulate the barrel. Well, you know what? Everything, it was a long, long time ago, 8 years ago, I'll say that, well, it couldn't have been that long. Yeah, about that long. So Tom Sullivan entered the House of Representatives same time as I did, and he moved over to the Senate same time as I did. Now, his whole focus of life is trying to get rid of firearms in the world since he lost his son in the Aurora Theater shooting, and that's his total focus in life. And it's really a misspent energy, and so sad that he goes off in the direction that he does. But regardless, anything that might have been considered reasonable, common sense precautions through legislation, if any of that were true, that was spent years ago. He's now just making stuff up. I mean, trying to imagine you're going to regulate the barrels of firearms, and they don't even have serial numbers on them to where you could track them in some fashion. And I went up and railed against it on the floor because uh, very, the one thing that I think above all is that we as Second Amendment supporters concern ourselves with is the people being stronger than the government. So, and Brandon, I bet you know who Senator Michael does who said this, because I love the quote, but I don't know to whom to attribute it. That when the government, or when the people are in fear of the government, there is tyranny, and when the government is in fear of the people, there is liberty. And that's just truth. So in that bill, he has all these restrictions that if you're going to have a gun barrel and you're going to have it as a replaceable component to an existing firearm, or you're going to create a new firearm, the 3D printing and so on, that has to be registered with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, so on. And then he goes on to exempt every government entity, top to bottom, from the U.S. government military all the way down to a city and a town. And he names them off. It's city and county, like Denver is, and so on. And it says they are all exempt. Well, how how does that not fly in the face of if the people are in fear of the government, there is tyranny, because that's our biggest fear, right? Is that the government has all the guns and that we do not. So in my talk, I said, as I try to keep reminding Senator Sullivan all the time, that we are just as concerned about mass shootings as he is, although he's worried about 30 people getting killed, and we're worried about 30,000 people getting killed, like happened just back in January in Iran, after Iran had disarmed its citizens. So it's that's the reality, and it's not far away. And we and when they say this all the time, they go, well, that could not happen here. They literally say that to me. I said, what makes us so special that we could not surrender our weapons, like Venezuela, like Iran and so on, and that it happens here? We're not special like that. So yeah, we have to maintain control. We have to maintain parity at the least. But when a bill, and that just so glaring to me that I had to point it out as loud as I could, that he is saying disarm the citizens in this tiny fashion, and do not at the same time disarm the government at any level. Pretty blatant to me.
A few weeks ago, we had Rep. Graff on. Rep. Graff actually gave Tom Sullivan the nickname Grave Dancer because of all the horrible stuff that he's done, um, specifically in referencing his own son to strip our rights away, and how he never misses an opportunity to bring up his son and then turn around and say, that's why we need to take your guns away. Um, we're also seeing people down at the Capitol now. I mean, I gave a very tame testimony this week, basically on Senate Bill 86. I think his bill on reducing the excise tax is a good bill. I simply used guns as an reason why he did not like that. Corey Blair from Break the Chains Media did a bit of a parody on that bill, basically calling for, permit to puff, a very satirically common sense car control, etc.
Mhm.
I know another gun store owner went down to the Capitol and testified on another bill, brought guns up as an example as well. And he does not like that whatsoever. My question to you is, where is the line? We need to be down there. I know we need to be taking the offense to these people, and we have the right to petition. how far is too far when we're coming down there and we're calling these people out, especially in testimony?
Well, that's a good question, and let's talk about this a bit because it really is a kind of philosophical thing to path to go down that's worthy of out loud conversation like this, public conversation. So, for one, I did not listen to that testimony, that hearing, but I I've been giggling quite a bit just hearing all about it. And so show, showing here, let's apply your bad ideas to you, which by the way, I'm planning to do with the new Senate Bill 97, where they're planning on at least discussing the legalization of prostitution in Colorado. And what could go wrong there? I'm going to introduce my plan right now is to introduce at least two amendments to that. One would that be that both parties engaged in that activity have to wear masks. And second is that they have to maintain a 6 foot distance between the two of them at all times, So anyway, that's part of this. It's kind of along the same lines of what you were talking about, just bringing back their rules and apply those rules to them. And anyway, so here's the sadness about public testimony is that the decisions are so baked in ahead of time that while it is worthy of our saying all the things that we're going to say, we need to never believe that we're going to change the people's minds by debating until 3 a.m. It just doesn't. That's a reality we need to face. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it because we should. But I'll give the example of one of my bills that got killed a couple weeks ago, I guess about 10 days ago. Um, Two of them actually in the same committee got killed, and they were directed towards trying to address the sexual misconduct in schools, but specifically in Jefferson County. Had Jefferson County in mind then. But when they were voting, when they were having final comments before voting, the chair, who was the Senator Wallace, she says, "Well, here's my final comment before we vote." And she opens up a three-ring binder, and she did this three times. One to Senator Zamora Wilson's bill, and to both of my bills that were all three being heard in that committee that day. And she reads her comments of why she's voting against the bill. So, in other words, she showed up with this, which I doubt she wrote herself, and read the reasoning for voting no against our bills. Obviously our testimony and the testimony of all the people that showed up to come and give their reasoning were ignored altogether. So, but you know what? The couple things is, for one, the people need to hear that we're standing up for what is righteous. We need to hear that standing up for what is constitutional, what is common sense, and sometimes if one of these things goes to court one day, if there's a bill, for instance, that is unconstitutional, and that argument gets debated in court, then it is useful to say, now here's a point that was made during testimony, during second reading, third reading, whatever, and that becomes a tool for the attorneys on our side, on the good side of the force that are arguing, trying to get an unconstitutional bill overturned, for instance. So it's always worth it, always worth coming down and just letting them have it. Um, Rarely, though, are we able to move votes. It's just that's the reality we need to accept. And the way we move votes is we elect better people to these offices.
Well said, sir. Completely agree. And I think, so much of politics is just marketing, right? It's the media, it's the narrative around politics, around legislation, around candidates. So showing up, testifying, speaking, and I mean, just the allies you can make and trying to get those talking points out there. And sometimes I think when people testify, recognize that we're speaking to the people of Colorado, not necessarily even just the legislators there. But like you said, calling out the bad, celebrating the good, and supporting our good legislators when they have a good bill introduced too. I think that's so important. We need the people to show up. And we've all heard it time and time again. Well, where you get a Democrat maybe saying, well, nobody showed up to testify against the bill, or none of my constituents emailed me, and it's just an excuse. We get it. But nonetheless, we can take that excuse away from them and make an impact. But, Senator, I'd love to hear a little bit about your campaign. I know you've been, like you said, you've been traveling across the state, showing up at events. We just had caucus and assemblies are coming up and this and that. So, how's the campaign going? What do people need to know about your campaign for U.S. Senate?
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Brandon. So yeah, I am asking the people of Colorado to give me a promotion. Same job, bigger stage, and yeah, this is frankly something I always thought would be an awesome thing to do, is to go fight this battle at the federal level, at the United States level. So yeah, and no secret, I was initially running for governor for this. In fact, we've talked about that on the show before, and I'm going to blame my wife lovingly, who I think probably can hear me right now say this. And anyway, when I first told her that I was responding to all of the calls from the advanced technology community asking me, the businesses asking me to run for governor, and they're leaning on me really hard for like 5 months, and it had never been an aspiration of mine to become governor. And but they're going, look, Baisley, we moved companies here to Colorado because you encouraged us to. You created this environment. But it turns out that the business environment really sucks in Colorado. We need a governor who's going to veto the lousy legislation that comes through and makes it more difficult for us to operate in Colorado, because we want to stay in Colorado. And I'm going, I want you to stay in Colorado. We need the work. We need those opportunities. So that's been a big emphasis of mine, is bringing business, bringing economic opportunity to Colorado. Because, you know, if we're healthy economically, then everything else seems to follow. So let's get that as a priority. And anyway, I remember telling my wife, it was almost 2 years ago, and I said, Marianne, I think I'm really going to run. I'm going to run for governor. They've been after me for months, and she says, no, you're supposed to run for U.S. Senate. Now, we've been together since 16 years old, so she really knows me. In fact, the first time I set out to run for House of Representatives way back in 2018, she says, now remember, Mark, I know everything. And she does, so I be careful. But anyways, so the move over to run for U.S. Senate after, 20 some odd people running for governor, um, uh, I I saw my colleague Julie Gonzalez throw her hat in the ring, running for U.S. Senate against John Hickenlooper, and I thought, well, she's nuts. That won't go very far. But the next night, the day after she announced, which was December 8, on December 9, I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting in up in Arvada, and I was the only Republican, and I'm talking with my Democrat colleagues, and I bring it up, and I go, hey, what's with Julie challenging Hick? That's interesting. And I expected them to say, yeah, that's nutty, but that's Julie. But no, they said, yeah, we're thinking maybe it's time for Hick and Looper to move along. I go, oh my gosh, they've got their new mom Donnie, right? And Julie. And so I thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity here that I should consider. So after long conversations with my campaign staff, that was a decision I made to do. And I can't tell you how much more comfortable I feel in the skin. It's just it's as I told my wife when she first made that suggestion to me a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? That would be for me. That would be something that I would do because I would find that fulfilling. But somebody needs to step up to governor and save this state. Anyway, I think we have good people who can do that. It doesn't have to be me. There are good people in the race that have to, and I'm not endorsing anyone, but I sure have my opinion, and I'll be voting a particular way, but I'm not going to share that uh, in any public forum. But anyway, but this just feels right. This is what I feel like I've been preparing for. I've been, I served as a county party chairman and vice chair of the state party in the House and now in the state Senate in my fourth year. And as Congressman Bob Schaefer said, the best training ground for United States Congress Congress is state legislature. And in fact, I even inherited Bob's desk on the Senate floor. And um, this this just feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm excited about it. I'm running hard. It was caucus week this past several days. I spoke to well over 300 precincts in my run around the state, and I just get so energized by that. I when I get to sit with the ranchers and hear their perspectives on things that Front Range people worry about, they're concerned about the traffic on I-70. Well, you should hear what a rancher says about traffic on I-70 and the time limits they have for keeping livestock in the back of a truck, and being stuck in traffic on I-70. And you learn all these things talking with all these folks and go, wow, there's some things I can do to help that. And so I'm running hard, and I intend to win this thing and to push good old John Hickenlooper to the side because you know what? Look what's going on in Washington, D.C. It ain't all perfect, but it's all pretty great. Most of it's pretty great. And it's a there's like a new renaissance in America happening. And Colorado is not fully participating in that because we have U.S. senators like Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper who whine about it instead of embracing the great, the good, and saying, yes, let's be part of that. So I intend to be a partner for Colorado in all of that.
That's excellent. Excellent to hear. I know personally, listening to you yesterday, you were by far and away my favorite U.S. Senate candidate. Just to let you know,
Wow.
really liked hearing what you said yesterday at the Capitol.
Hmm.
You engaged the room better in my opinion than anybody else, and you have that experience. So appreciate you stepping into that U.S. Senate race, Senator Baisley. My last question to you today is one of the big themes we've heard over the last few years is AI, 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 AI. What's going to happen to AI? We had Robert Rodriguez a few years ago push through a last minute AI bill that has devastating consequences for our business industry, especially those in the AI sector. Um, we saw during this past legislative session, specifically the special session, we saw the AI bill pop up, and that was a problem for everybody. Democrats and Republicans hate the AI bill that was introduced, and all we're seeing is them kicking the can down the road on what was supposed to be enacted already. But they at least recognize that this AI bill that was enacted was a terrible bill. Um, the promise that during that special session was we were going to fix it in the 2026 regular session. I'm kind of curious if you have any updates for us on what you might be hearing down at the Capitol. Do we have any progress, and do we have a good bill that might be able to be introduced to actually give us a good solution?
Great questions, Michael. So for everybody's sake listening in, yeah, it was Senate Bill 24-205, which Robert Rodriguez, the majority leader, introduced back there, obviously in 2024. And what the attempt of that was, it was trying to address the fear that the civil rights community has that AI will generatively discriminate against protected classes of people. Um, so yeah, nobody wants technology to discriminate against folks based on race, whatever. But the reality is the Democrats have been discriminating against people for so long institutionally that they're afraid that AI is going to do it wrong. So they objected, and the way they objected through the civil rights folks is to require that the source code, the actual intellectual property, be turned over to the Attorney General's office, who would enforce these rules by reviewing their intellectual property, by reviewing their code. So the Attorney General, Phil Weiser, even asked for, I can't remember how many full-time equivalents. How he wanted to hire a whole army of code reviewers to go through sift through their technology. Can you imagine if you're a company, this is your your secret sauce, and you're going to turn that over to a state and just hope that they don't reveal it to your competition or the rest of the world. And anyway, so that's why we lost Palantir. because we are not resolving that problem right away. So yeah, there was an attempt to resolve it through a, uh, a, a commission that was put together that I served on, but it was the Fox watching the Chicken House. It was Robert Rodriguez himself that chaired that committee. It was like, oh, brother. So they came up with a solution and got in a big fight just intramurally amongst the Democrats at the end of 2025. We never resolved that. So yeah, that this law is supposed to go into effect. It was supposed to have gone into effect last month, February 2026. But at the special session, as you mentioned, Michael, then that the only thing that was accomplished then was to kick that can down the road and extend that law not going into effect until this year in July 1, I guess it probably is, or June 30. So, so we have this year to fix it. I'll tell you that I've introduced what we call model legislation. I introduced it through the American Legislative Exchange Council. They peer reviewed my bill, which said, hey, let's not focus on the technology itself. Let's just say that if something was illegal to do before AI, then it's illegal to do with the AI. And so discrimination based on race, for instance, if that was illegal before, it's illegal using AI or any other technology as well. I actually got called to the Capitol, first time, and I've got to give testimony on the Hill. And that was just a few months ago because they saw that I had been doing this battle. And the federal government is looking at trying to come up with a nationwide regulation, which I applaud them for doing, so that the companies don't have a patchwork of laws across the United States. You know, they have to comply this way in Texas, and this way in Tennessee, this way in Florida, this way in Massachusetts, and the worst way in Colorado. Anyway, so I gave them my testimony and to like 70 staffers that were all writing furiously and trying to come up with a national law. So I hope that they do, and I hope they do it with wisdom. At any rate, but so what's happened in the past several months is a new committee was formed that is primarily composed of business folks. So people like from Palantir and Google and Microsoft and the smaller companies that are headquartered in Colorado. We do have some really great AI companies headquartered in Colorado. uh, Iterate AI, for instance, is one. And anyway, they are coming up with a rule, and they're keeping all of us legislators out of it, which I think that's probably very wise. So the governor's office, and this is one of those areas where the governor and I are in alignment. We're both trying to fix this together. So I think we're going to come up with a good compromise that considers the concerns that the civil rights people have, but allows for the flexibility and the protection of intellectual property for the company. So that's I hear that it's going very well. I've had a few conversations even with the Google folks. I just talked with them last week, and they say that we're in a good place. So I haven't seen the documentation of it, but everything I'm hearing about it, it's promising, Michael. So I believe that there will be a bill this year that we will sign into law that will make it okay, and then eventually, hopefully, an even better bill will come from the federal government and override all the states. The last thing I'll share with you on that topic is oh shoot, what was the oh that the guy who was bringing this in the first place, Majority Leader Robert Rodriguez. He's kind of fallen out of favor with the civil rights people. So while they were a team to be reckoned with, um, they got mad at him during all of the back and forth over the past couple of years. So they no longer have him as their champion, and he's in like extremely powerful, maybe the most powerful position outside of the Speaker of the House in the whole legislature. And but they're not pals anymore, and I think that's been a very good development for all of us.
Interesting. I love the inside information there. That's always great to hear. But Senator, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a busy week ahead of you as well. Before we let you go here, can you just tell us how people can support your campaign for U.S. Senate?
Yeah. So two things. One very practical thing is um, signing up as or to become a delegate for me to support me at the state assembly on April 11 in Pueblo. If you're signed up as a delegate on caucus night in your county, then thank you for doing that, and I'll appreciate if you vote for me. I It is possible for me to come out of that assembly by myself. That's my intention. If I can come out as the nominee at that point, then I can get to work against Hickenlooper and or Julie Gonzalez from the beginning while they battle each other, and we can make some strides and win this thing. So, and outside of that, my website is Baisley for Colorado. I'm sorry, Baisley for Senate, BaisleyforSenate.com, BaisleyforSenate.com. And you can sign up there and you can participate financially in all other ways. So thank you for the opportunity, Brandon and Michael. Appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You know, you're doing an incredible job down there. You are our most pro-liberty senator in our state government, and really appreciate all the work you do. Really wish you well on the U.S. Senate campaign. It'd be wonderful to see you up there, and hopefully you can, if you get elected, you know, you can fight for Colorado at the federal level and push back against some of the radicals here in our own state government. That would be wonderful to see. So, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your evening, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Senator.
Good night.
Perfect. Take care, sir. Awesome. Good stuff there. And folks, yeah, BaisleyForSenate.com. Check that out. And yeah, if you liked what you heard tonight, you can support Senator Baisley there. So good stuff. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you and take care, and we'll talk to you again soon. Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Michael, before we jump back in the presentation, any other thoughts on Senator Baisley?
I think he's great. I mean, I think this really demonstrates why he has been the best senator in the Colorado legislature for the last few years. I mean, consistently and time again, he looks at everything from a principled standpoint. And if even if there's a Republican on that bill, he's going to say this does not follow or this does not align with the principles of the Constitution, and he votes it down. I also respect that he tries to at least go to these individuals and say, "Hey, I like certain aspects of this bill, but for these specific reasons, I just can't align." But he also has still, yeah, at the same time, he still has the intellectual humility to listen to somebody and have his mind change if there's something that he's missing or something that he doesn't realize might be constitutional when he initially thought it wasn't. He's still open to that conversation. So I really respect him for the way he's handled himself, the way he's handled his campaigns, and I don't think it should go unnoticed that just like he talked about with um his gubernatorial run, his heart wasn't in it. He preferred the Senate, and the Colorado GOP has a problem with all of these candidates currently running. I believe it's well, at one point in time it was 23. Now it's currently sitting at 18 candidates
You
for
know,
the
but let's be
gubernatorial
real
run.
though. It's only there's only three. You know what I mean? The rest of them
Exactly.
don't matter. So it's like, you know, there could be 20, there could be 100. There's only really three that have a chance, if you ask me. Victor Marks, Barb Kirkmeyer, and Scott Bottoms as the three that potentially could be the nominee. That's what I mean.
Oh, absolutely. And he had the fortitude to say, "Hey, I'm not probably in that group of three, so why should I continue to run in a race my heart's really not in?" He preferred Senate anyway. I really appreciate him. I think that shows a lot of wisdom and a lot of courage to say, "Hey, this race isn't for me. I'm going to try to run for US Senate." And I think it fits him even better.
Yeah, and I really like what he said about building a reputation, you know, having a reputation about being the constitutional voice, and that's not easy to come by. And it's because he's principled, because he has that specific way he's going to look at things. And I thought that was really impressive as well. But, you know, hey, we still got a lot to talk about. You ready to jump back in the presentation?
Let's get into it, Brandon.
All right, don't go anywhere, folks. We got so much more to talk about tonight. The last news story, the last highlight from this last week was the Senate House Bill 1084 did pass out of the State House on third reading, Very unfortunate. Every single Democrat who was there voted for it. All 22 Republicans opposed it. And this is a bill that got a lot of traction. I got 17,000 views on this Facebook post, or excuse me, X post, gosh, just from 2 days ago. And yeah, basically, here's what Liberty Scorecard said about the bill. This bill weaponizes the ballot title to steer voters using speculative, politically loaded claims about which top three spending areas would be cut. This invites gamemanship by fiscal staff, and the title board empowers insiders over citizens and chills grassroots initiatives with longer, scarier titles that read like advocacy. This was a bill that made it more difficult for citizen petitions to win, basically, to get on the ballot. This is really a response to Advance Colorado. They had that bill last year giving money to law enforcement payouts for law enforcement who are injured or died on the job. And the state legislature was really, the Democrats were not happy that they had to figure out where this money was going to come from. So they're like, hey, listen, if you're going to put something on the ballot, you need to tell us where this money is going to come from. Oh, but actually, we're going to let the title board and let these other people in our state government kind of decide how this is going to be presented to the voters. So it's just a way to chill the ability of citizens to get stuff on the ballot, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. So horrible bill. This is going to be in the Senate, so hopefully, it can die there. But unfortunately, we have a really bad bill here, 1084, and wanted to bring this up. This did pass this last week on Friday. So any thoughts on this, Michael, before we jump into the bills being heard this week?
I'll just say briefly, this is once again another demonstration of the left trying to protect their own power and not listen to the people when they simultaneously call themselves the party of democracy. It's absolutely sick, and this is something that we need to remember come November and let our voice be heard, or let our voices be heard, and make sure to get out and vote.
Well said, definitely. Yeah, they hate the idea that citizens can have an impact on our government. Of course, these people see themselves as experts, these bad Democrats who are trying to make decisions over our own lives. But let's talk about, folks, the bills being heard this week. So that we talked a little bit about on the beginning of the live stream, bills being heard last week. We had an amazing guest tonight with Senator Baisley, kind of giving us some inside information, which was phenomenal. But let's get into the bills being heard this week. This is what you can testify on. You can show up to committee hearings. It is so important to do that for a number of reasons. But ultimately, we want to have that narrative about what's happening in our state government if we want to see some political change happen here in Colorado. Not just that, folks, but of course, you can reach out to these legislators ahead of the committee hearing. You can email them, you can call them. And if there's a lot of controversy, I mean, we saw it. We saw some of these bills where these legislators who are in swing districts, who, as Senator Baisley said, might expect the legislature to flip or lose. Maybe the Senate goes to Republicans, or there's a Republican governor, or something can happen here in Colorado. Then you can actually really say, hey, listen, you're on a swing district, Mr. Senator, Mr. Or Mrs. Representative. Let's maybe don't vote for this one, and we might see that happen. We could see an amendment come out. So there's a lot of reasons to get involved. So let's jump into Monday, March 9th, House Finance Committee at 1:30 p.m. in the House Committee Room 112. This is the package of three bills, folks. These are three of the biggest bills this week that are actually going to be devastating to our business community. Of course, we're the sixth most regulated state in the country for businesses, and this one is going to adjust tax expenditures, so limiting the alternate minimum tax credit, requiring a corporation to change how they're reporting our taxes. So basically, the federal government through HR1, the Big Beautiful Bill Act last year, was a great tax relief bill for so many companies and so many employers across the United States, across Colorado. Well, our greedy politicians in Denver say no, 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 no. We don't want you to have tax cuts. We want to raise your taxes at the local level to steal more of your money. Now, of course, this is money coming from our employers, from businesses. This is a bad, bad, bad news, folks. Let's just take a quick peek at the fiscal note. The fiscal note, folks, is what I always recommend looking at on any bill, not just to see the fiscal impact, but to get a really nice, concise summary that the legislative staff writes. But just here it is right here, folks. I mean, you can see some of the expenditures. They don't really have a lot of fiscal impact there until you go down. And this is so tricky how they do this, folks. So basically, look at this money that's coming out of our economy. Let's just pick 27 to 28. $167 million is coming out of our state economy and going towards our state government. Now, that's a zero fiscal note, zero net revenue, because they're going to put that $167 million into a affordability credit. So they're going to pay off their voters. And this is how it works, folks. You have legislators take money from the business community, give that money to their preferred class of individuals down at the state capitol or down in the public there and say, vote for me. Look at all these tax credits you're getting. You're getting all this money. And unfortunately, that's the game of democracy. And it's sickening and it's destructive to our economy here. But folks, I mean, look at this. Every year, just this year, where it's a half year, fiscal wise, 3 million, then 87 million, then jumps up to 167 million. Imagine saying that we should pull 167 million out of the coffers of businesses that provide jobs and provide economic growth here in Colorado. It's absolutely sickening. I really recommend people dig into this one. I'm going to share the link in the chat so you can, but I'd love to hear what you think, Michael.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. I mean, I quickly jotted down a few notes. Yeah, it's requiring that add back. In order to make things more affordable. Ironically, none of this is going to make anything more affordable. It's just going to give people more handouts, and they're falsely going to think that because they got the handouts, it makes their life more affordable. Yeah, you're 100% correct. This is just a voting scheme. We don't need any more of this nonsense in Colorado. Yeah, expanded family affordability credit. Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous. Um, yeah, at the end of the day, this is just going to cost more money for businesses. And what's going to happen when businesses have to pay more money? They're going to do two things. One, they're going to shrink down they're going to try to, tighten down their budgets, try to find any sort of expenditure that they can get rid of. And once they get to the point where they can't get rid of any more of their own personal expenditures, they're going to start cutting employees because where else are they going to go? The other thing that's going to happen is the additional costs that these taxes are going to produce. They're also going to be turned into higher and higher prices, higher prices for consumers as well. So our stuff is going to get more expensive. The people from these companies are also going to be laid off, and they're going to have their benefits reduced because they've got to pay for this somehow. And it's going to end up being a net negative for Colorado. All these little schemes are just going to hurt Coloradans instead of helping Coloradans. Look at what's gone on since our state legislature has become a one-party state. It's gotten less and less affordable for Coloradans to live. They've received more revenue, yet when they receive more revenue, they find ways to spend that revenue in ways not thought possible. And they've gone from a budget surplus of billions of dollars to now a budget deficit. And our debt is only going to grow, is going to continue to grow and grow as a state. And then our economy, because of all those decisions these Democrats have made, is getting crippled and crippled and crippled. We went from one of the freest states in the country from a business perspective to what I believe the 40th worst, if not the 43rd worst regulated state in the entire country. So the Democrats are not stopping. If anything, they're speeding up their regulatory scheme on Colorado businesses and our economy.
Why should a high profile company come to Colorado, right? It says, well, our executive
Yeah.
compensation add back. They're going to lose that ability to pay their executives. So they say, well, Colorado's not as competitive because of this. The Colorado Alternative Minimum Tax Credit. It's 4,000 taxpayers here in Colorado won't be able to claim who claimed it previously won't be able to claim that tax credit. That's another $6.6 million right there. The net operating loss deduction. You know, gosh, the expense, and then they're putting this into a tax credit. But ultimately, folks, the number is they're pulling $167 million out of our private sector into this tax credit. And you can see the breakdown there. It is absolutely shameful, especially in a time like this when we have so much economic uncertainty. People in the chat are talking about the price of oil. And unfortunately, this is moving Colorado totally in the wrong direction. No surprise there. Of course, we have some of the more socialist type legislators on this bill who don't understand how businesses actually operate. And it's absolutely and utterly shameful here. So horrible bill, folks. Definitely got to push back on that as much as we can. Also, also in that same committee, this is the package of bills. It's 122, 120, 120, 1221, 1222, and 1223, all being heard in the same committee back to back, all doing pretty much the same thing, modifying these tax expenditures, so repealing tax credits. Basically, ultimately, I mean, this one you can see here. Yep, it's going to go in this family affordable credit. So they're saying, see, listen, how wonderful we are. We're helping all the poor people out in Colorado that, now that they're not going to be able to get a job because all the corporate companies have left. But just look at 27, 28, just to stick with that. Here, under this bill, our taxable income is changing to $329 million. And this is House Bill 1222. So another $300 million being pulled out of our economy. Absolutely shameful. That's money that's not going to be spent. The additions and subtractions to state taxable income. The way they're doing this, it shouldn't be legal. We have a single subject rule in Colorado. Of course, I agree with somebody in the chat there, Dave Doe, talking about how this is actually since it's a net tax increase, it should be subject to Tabor. I agree with that 100%. I think that should be as it is. But yeah, all these deductions that people are getting on their federal taxes will not be able to get them here in Colorado. So Colorado is less competitive than ever, and they're just going to be giving money away to their politically preferred voters there. So bad news on all of these. And Michael, jump in if you have any thoughts on 1222 or 1223 here.
Yeah, I mean, they're all three pretty much doing the same thing, just slightly, but with slightly different taxes or different areas of taxation. Same exact thing. I mean, just like you said, I mean, this is their excuse to try to push back against the Trump administration because they don't like some of the tax changes that were actually good for Coloradans. I mean, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was not a perfect bill by any means, but there were a lot of positives about the bill as well. And the issue I have is the good things from the One Big Beautiful Bill are the things that the Democrats have a problem with, and they are trying to harm Coloradans by removing those good features of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Yeah, this is 1223 is downloadable software exemption. So the bill narrows the downloadable software sales and use tax exemption so that only custom software developed for use by a particular user and software governed by a negotiable license agreement is exempt from taxation. So basically, software sales folks are going to be taxed here in Colorado, and they're going to, how much money that's going to equate to? It's going to equate in 2027 to 2028, $90 million. So you got to think these big corporations, who are paying for the software every year, and now all of a sudden they're paying way more in taxes to the tune of another $90 million just taken out of our private sector to go to this black hole of the government to pay their preferred political pawns. Bad news, folks, ultimately. So yeah, they're chasing technology companies out. They're saying you get your software exemption. I mean, this can make the difference in terms of why a business will decide not to come to Colorado, ultimately what it is. So bad stuff, folks. And yeah, it's not good. You're gonna have to use a VPN to buy your software, basically. So those are the three bills in the House Finance that is very important to pay attention to if you're at all involved and care about, taxes and the business climate and this and that. I'm going to be paying very close attention to this tomorrow as much as I can with my day job. But the other big committee on Monday that we wanted to make you aware of was the House State Affairs Committee, and I'm just shortening that. Also meeting at 1:30 in the Old State Library. We have three bills there that are really a big focus for people here in Colorado. So let's take a look at the first one here: limitation on gender transition procedure claims. This is from the great Representative Ken DeGraff. Basically, this bill would say that, right now in Colorado, the statute of limitations is generally speaking about 2 years. So if a minor gets injured because of this gender transition, this horrifying surgery mutilates their body, and then they have some regrets later, hey, it's been 2 years. You can't sue, folks. You can't pursue any type of damages. This bill would extend that claim up to about 38 years of age. So the bill requires that a cause of action for an intentional or a negligent act for an injury as a result of youth gender transition procedure by a provider must be brought before the youth reaches 38 years old. So the idea here is there's maybe potentially some level of justice or accountability for people who are harming children in this horrific way. So important bill. Of course, we know the Democrats are going to kill it, but it is important to show up, to have a voice, and to get this information out there to people. People don't know that this is happening, and unfortunately, it is happening in our state. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I'd love to see some. I'd love to see this one pass. This just like the other bills in this committee. The nice thing about the other bills in this committee is at least one of them is going to be on the 2026 ballot because of the great work of Protect Kids Colorado and Aaron Lee. Uh, but something like this, we're just unfortunately not. We're not going to see it pass. I'd love to see it pass. Yeah, this one right here, the 1083. What's nice about this is we have the opportunity to uh, get some people on record and saying that they don't support promoting they don't support protecting female sports, and that's what the thing that I'm excited about with this one is getting some of these people on record. Um, I thought it was pretty fantastic during the last bottoms bill. That ended up becoming a ballot question. Uh, Aaron Lee went down to the Capitol with the signatures because they're still in the signature review phase, and she had her clipboards right with her and asked any of the Democrats to sign. Here's the thing: not a single Democrat um, signed for the yeah, not a single one of the Democrats signed any of her ballot initiatives, and the bill in question that we were talking about back then was the Children Not for Sale Act, which was going to make trafficking children a class one felony. So it's a very unfortunate that they couldn't support something as basic as that. But you can see here a team or a sport that is designated for female, women, or girls cannot be open for participation by a male participant. That's absolutely a basic fund. That should be absolutely be a basic fundamental of our of yeah, our Colorado team sports, at least in the at the high school level, at the high school and middle school levels. Um, I get certain sports like football, for example, might be co-ed, but you just typically don't see too many women playing, but they have the opportunity. And if you do see women play, usually you see women are kickers most of the time. That doesn't mean they couldn't play, or that doesn't mean they couldn't be. Uh, the right girl might not that doesn't mean she couldn't be effective at her position. I mean, you even see some female kickers even make it all the way up to the college level. But a girl should have the opportunity to play in the sport that she sees fit, and she shouldn't also be um, she also should be feel like she's safe to play the sport that she intends to play. So if she wants to play basketball, she wants to play if she wants to be a part of the track team, she wants to play soccer. She shouldn't be concerned about, especially about her safety in those individual locker rooms or on those teams themselves. So I'd love to see this one pass.
Definitely, we're moving a little quick here, folks, just because the hour we're at this night. But yeah, three bills in this committee: the limitation on gender transition procedure claims from Representative Ken DeGraff, also the protect female sports. So if you care about any of these issues, you can show up to this one committee, zoom in, reach out to the committee members, and let them know. Of course, we know the Democrats are going to kill this bill, but it's going to be great to hear the testimony. Hopefully, we see some students out there. Hopefully, we see some people talking about why this is valuable, why this is important, and maybe we'll see Jennifer Say, Aaron Lee, some of the others. So really important bill being heard, and Representative Scott Bottoms is doing everything he can to stand up for the people of Colorado who are being marginalized, which includes female athletes, believe it or not. Absolutely crazy. The other big bill in the committee is also from Representative Scott Bottoms. So a big one here, and that is going to be the Department of Public Health and Environmental Regulation of Abortion Clinics. Of course, we all know this isn't going anywhere. The Democrats love abortions more than they love illegal immigrants. So this bill, anything that challenges that, of course, is not going to be entertained whatsoever. But hey, if they're licensing gun shops and all this bill would require the Department of Public Health and Environment to annually license and to establish and enforce standards for the operation of facilities that are not currently required to be licensed by the department and that perform medical or surgical induced abortions during the second or third trimester of pregnancy. So it's an important messaging bill, I think, because it gets the information out there, it gets the conversation going, and, it provides a voice to the unborn and people who are, being victimized. So three really important bills being heard in this committee tomorrow. It'll be very interesting to tune in and to listen. And folks, these are all live streamed. You can watch, you can listen throughout the day, make your own clips, get this information out there to your neighbors. I mean, just think about it this way too. If you want to start persuading your neighbors or family members about the political situation here in Colorado, take some screenshots or some clips of this Protect Female Sports Act and be like, did you see that the Democrats actually prevented girls from having their own segregated sports, like their own sports teams. Like, you know what I mean? This is one of those things where it's good for messaging in terms of shifting voters and shifting perceptions about what's happening in our government. And a lot of that has to do with the testimony being heard as well. So that's why all three of those are important. Any final thoughts on this committee, Michael?
Yeah, if you guys can get down there, especially with Monday, with everything going on with the tax bills as well as this, and work with another friend, or at least try to listen to the other testimony while you're in one room, or excuse me, listen to one hearing while you're in the other room. That's going to work out best for you, probably. That way you can be as most efficient as possible, especially because there's six important bills that are going to be heard tomorrow.
Definitely, and a lot more, but this is all we're going to cover tonight. On Tuesday, really interesting bill. I interviewed Representative Scott Slaw on this one. He's really excited about it. I also saw Representative Flannel posting about it earlier today. This is in House Committee Room 112, the House Health and Human Services Committee on Tuesday, March 10th. So now we're into Tuesday, folks. Some very interesting bills being heard in this committee. We'll see if they get to them all. I could see this one having some time taken, but basically, this would discuss adoption information with pregnant persons. And yes, they have to use pregnant persons because that's the state government. Unfortunately, that's where it's at. They can't say women. Absolutely crazy there. But the idea here, Representative Slaw, if you haven't seen my video with him, he's very open about the fact that he was adopted. And so he's basically, it's an issue that's really important to him to try and protect other children who maybe would otherwise be killed instead of being adopted. And he had a great life. And he's so super thankful that he was adopted and was not aborted, not killed as a fetus or as a child. And so this bill just basically says, hey, listen, if you're going to get an abortion, they just basically say, hey, listen, we just want to give you the options about abortion, about adoption, and let you know that that is the person can decline it. Don't get me wrong; they don't have to sit there and listen to it. They're not being preached to or anything. But it's like, hey, listen, we just want to make sure you have that information because you know what? The other information they do receive, they are definitely going to receive information about getting an abortion anytime pregnancy is involved in Colorado. And this basically just gives that choice and make sure that the mother has all that information, or excuse me, the pregnant person has all that information. So interesting bill. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, I'm curious about the fertilizing person if they have much involvement in these types of situations. Maybe we can talk to some of our friends about that as they are fertilizing persons. Um, um, Also, I just was kind of curious. One thing I'm kind of curious about is why isn't this already standard, especially since, as you're saying, they talk about abortion already. Shouldn't this be something? Shouldn't excuse me, shouldn't informing somebody of all of their options be important if we're going to inform individuals about some of their options? Should they not actually be informed of all of the options? I think at this point it's kind of silly and almost disgusting the fact that we don't that we can absolutely so freely talk about aborting a child to a mother, but we're not going to give them the option of adopting out that child as well. It should at least that should be the discussion that is at least provided. Because at the end of the day, the Democrats once again demonstrate that they're not actually pro-choice; they are just pro-abortion.
Oh, of course, Planned Parenthood gives them a lot of money and a lot of that's changing, don't get me wrong, but nonetheless, I think it's an important conversation to be had. you know. Um, Now moving on to Tuesday, House Transportation, Housing and Local Government Committee and LSBA. So that's the Legislative Service Building just south of the state capitol. Two good bills being heard. One of them is one of my new favorite representatives, Representative Larry Don Sukla. So this is upon adjournment of the state house, folks. But I wanted to bring up there's a lot being heard in all these committees, so many bills, over 500. But we're just giving you some of the highlights here. Really excited for this one. Unfortunately, they killed it last year. I'm sure they're going to do it again. Repeal retail delivery fees. Representative Woog is really passionate about this, but basically, it's insane in Colorado how many fees we have instead of taxes. It should be illegal for sure because they are just taking and taking and taking our money. I mean, look at this, folks, how much they're collecting in delivery fees, $121 million in 26 to 27 fiscal year. And the fiscal year starts, I think it's like June, or I think it's July 1st, the fiscal year starts, to just to give you an idea. And then the year after that, it goes down to only about 41 million in terms of the revenue that the state would lose. So of course, anything cutting out fees or taxes is always going to be supported by us pro-liberty individuals. But it's absolutely crazy that there's all these fees we have to pay on all these different things. 6 retail delivery fees, folks. There are 6 retail delivery fees. Department of Revenue, the Highway Users Tax Fund, the Multimodal Transportation and Mitigated Options Fund, and 5 enterprises. And the Department of Revenue retains some of that to pay for all of this. The fees total 28 cents per delivery and maybe adjusted for inflation in future years. So we know they're only going to go up. And there's the whole breakdown there. But 28 cents. And yeah, it adds up to millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars over the time of it. So yeah, bad news, folks. Love this bill. Love to see this one get repealed. Hard to think it's going to go anywhere, especially with the fiscal situation our state government's in. But it's an important conversation to be had, and it's an important attempt. And it does show that if Republicans were in the majority, and this is it, folks, you may not like Republicans, but if Republicans were in the majority, they'd be passing bills like this, and that would move Colorado in the right direction. So that's ultimately what it comes down to this November. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
Yeah, I would love to see this one get passed. I know we're not going to see this get passed, but it would be pretty fantastic to support this bill if we can possibly get down to the Capitol to let our voices be heard, because there are so many fees and taxes that Colorado attacks us with that make Colorado less and less affordable. And this would be a great way for us to bring a real shot at affordability in Colorado to the citizens of the state if we get this thing passed.
Definitely. We got to start repealing some of the fees, some of the taxes. It's a good bill, I think, that shows the value of this here. But I do want to bring up this one here from Representative Larry Don Sukla. If you didn't see the clip I posted of him down at the well this last week, it was phenomenal. Basically talking about this was the debate over 1084, the ballot measure bill, basically saying he wants, people of Colorado should be submitting as many ballot initiatives as possible because that's the only way freedom's going to increase. It's the only way things are going to change. The state government, the Democrat majority can't even balance the budget. They can't do anything right. And it was just phenomenal speech. But this is House Bill 1209, temporary decrease statutory property tax revenue limits. So, anything where it's a decrease, that's ultimately a good thing there. Ultimately, the bill temporarily decreases 3 statutory property tax growth limitations. So basically, the annual levy law here we have in Colorado is 5.5%. This brings it down to 4% and other things there. I mean, we know it's not going to go anywhere, but this is a good bill that would definitely save people some money. And I think that's so important. There is some backfilling, of course, so all our property taxes are local here in Colorado. And so this would basically say, well, the state government's got to spend that $84,000, which is why it's a positive fiscal note here to give money back to the state. So it's a minimal tax decrease, but nonetheless, for certain people, it can make a big improvement there. So good law. I love that we have this. A lot of people in Colorado don't know about the annual levy law. It's Colorado's oldest property tax revenue growth limitation. So currently statute generally limits property tax revenue growth to 5.5% from the prior year's revenue. The law's limitations do not apply to home municipalities. The law also excludes revenue from several sources. So it's a very limited bill, and I think he was trying to have it very narrow to try and make some difference here, but nonetheless, it could be a potentially good bill. But we need to see some property tax relief. People's property taxes have skyrocketed recently, and anything to decrease that and lower the limits in which they can raise our taxes is ultimately a win. Any other thoughts, Michael?
No, I think this bill, you bring up a great point. We've seen a lot of affordability issues. We talked about affordability time and time again this legislative session. I think this bill could really help out a lot of homeowners. We've seen we've seen house prices skyrocket over the last few years. My wife works in the mortgage industry, and what we're seeing since the turn of the year, at least in Colorado, is we're seeing the market pick back up drastically. So, um, at least in terms of volume and business. So I don't know how long that's going to last, but we can only hope it's going to last a while. But if it comes back too hard, we're also going to run into an issue of housing affordability for a lot of people as well. So there's a delicate balance within the market. So we want to see people buying houses. We want to see people. Uh, we want to see a lot of new construction. That's always good for economies. That's good for businesses. But if we don't see if we don't see actual new construction, what happens is we run into a housing crisis again, and And the only way to really resolve that housing crisis is to see prices skyrocket. And what does that do to our pocketbooks? It absolutely crushes them because all of a sudden we can't afford our home. We can't. All of a sudden we can't afford property tax. So we definitely need to do something to help out Coloradans because of how expensive it is to live in the state already.
Yeah, and if this bill passed fiscal year 27 to 28, it'd be at least $10.6 million saved by property owners in Colorado. I mean, that's not and when you think of the whole state, doesn't seem like a lot, but for some people, it could definitely make a difference. And we need to do something to improve that affordability. Of course, the Democrats' goal to improve affordability is to create tax credits so they can reward the people they want to reward and make everybody else pay for it. So that's what's happening on Tuesday in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. On Wednesday, the House Judiciary Committee is meeting on a very dangerous bill, I would say, on Wednesday, March 11th at 1:30 p.m. House Committee Room 107. Folks, if you care about social media freedom, internet freedom, then this bill should raise some alarm bells for you. Of course, just the title is a huge red flag for people out there. Protections for youth on social media. Gosh, the government, no, just no, folks. The big thing is there's so many different things here that has to happen in this bill where basically anybody that operates a platform with a certain amount of users would have to provide certain information about privacy policies and algorithms. Okay, that's fine and good. But at the same time, guess what? They're going to have a fee. They're going to have a new fee on every single transaction that takes place on these platforms of 5% of the money. And then it's going to go to the state public school fund. So, of course, it's a fee that's going to, for online gaming, product or feature, gaming service. Um, Likely to be accessed by a covered minor. I mean, this thing is such a rigmarole. This is something that Jared Polis might actually veto, but it also prohibits all these things where for minors not being to get on there on computers, sending push notifications to a minor between midnight and 6 a.m. Are you kidding me? There's all these things that's going to force social media companies and these quote unquote covered businesses to do. It's bad news, folks, for sure. But there's this idea that they're so here's what a covered business is. A covered business conducts business in the state and generates a majority of its annual revenue from online services, makes available online gaming services, products, or features that are reasonably likely to be accessed by a user who is a minor. So anybody playing video games, basically, and collects their personal data or has users' personal data collected on behalf of its processor. I mean, that's anybody that's collecting payment solely or jointly with others determines the purposes and means of processing the user's personal data. So you got to think, when people sign up for something, what is personal data? Your email address, your credit card number, this and that. But basically, yeah, they're going to have this whole new fee, this whole new system here, and permitting an individual to monitor the online activity of a covered minor, to track the location of a covered minor without providing a conspicuous signal to the covered minor when the covered minor is being monitored or tracked. Like what? That's what it prohibits them to doing. But basically, I mean, this is not the role of government for sure, and what they should be doing is not good. So bad news, folks. Ultimately, it'll be interesting to see the fiscal note, but this bill's coming on quick. And of course, this is not the proper role of government, but just the fee part is the big thing I wanted to bring up. So, anyways, any thoughts on this, Michael?
Yeah, one, how will the age be verified? Are they gonna actually use like what methods are they gonna use to actually verify the age of these individuals? Another thing that I'm kind of curious about is it talks about uh it, it says specifically they're going to allow an individual. They don't say individuals, they say an individual to track a minor online. What I'm concerned about is what their definition is because when you read the bill itself, it says it will permit an individual including a parent or guardian of a covered minor to monitor the online activity of a covered minor or to track the location of the covered minor without providing a conspicuous signal to the covered minor when the covered minor is being monitored or tracked. I want to know what the definition of the individual is. How expansive is this definition of individual? Because it doesn't even say in here. It says that parents or guardians will be included, but it doesn't specifically define what an individual is, and that's also concerning to me. Um, I'd definitely like to know what a individual. Yeah, just because And until I know, I mean, it makes me kind of question, could they possibly say an individual is somebody within the state government as well? I mean, how where does the line of an individual end that is allowed to quote unquote track their own track a child?
Well, and it says it's social media, but ultimately it's really in the online gaming service is what it comes down to.
Hmm.
Because the way they describe what the covered business is. You can name the bill whatever you want. It doesn't mean that that's what it is. So I don't know. I think it's bad news. It'd be very interesting to, and folks, a lot of times too, like listening in on committee hearings, you can learn a lot about the bill. So even if there's questions and you see how they amend it and see what the bill's about, but bad bill ultimately, the idea they're going to put a 5% fee on all these transactions on online platforms, basically, that's moving us in the wrong direction. So wanted to get that in front of people's attention. Basically, yeah, I think they do hate gamers there, folks. Senate, and then of course on Wednesday the big one, Senate Bill 97. Now we've heard a lot of rumors about the prostitution bill that it's going to be killed immediately without any testimony. I'm still encourage people to show up to register. But this is going to be an interesting bill. Of course, it's getting some national headlines. I think this one's going to backfire big time on the Democrats, because you got to think who votes in elections. It's mostly older people who don't necessarily like this idea. So regardless of what you think about prostitution, generally speaking. We know this bill's going to die in committee, I would say, and it'll be very interesting to see if how it ends up happening. But I'm very curious. This is going to be in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And just to give you guys an idea who's on the Senate Judiciary Committee coming up, you got Mike Weissman, Lindsey Doherty, Linda Samara Wilson, Dylan Roberts, Nick Hendrickson, John Carson, and Katie Wallace. So, of course, only two Democrats, but I don't see any scenario here where people vote for the bill to make it out of committee. I think this is going to see every single law enforcement, DA, municipality, county, everybody in the state of Colorado coming out against this bill. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
No, I agree, and I think there's a lot of concerning stuff in this bill. Two things I would want to point out. Can you pull up the PDF real quick of the bill text? Two things I think should be pointed out. One is page 6, lines 4 through 12. As the ordinance existed prior, yeah, if there is and there is probable cause to believe that a minor is a victim of human trafficking of a minor for sexual servitude pursuant, the law enforcement officer or agency shall immediately report a suspected violation of human trafficking of a minor for sexual servitude to the appropriate county department uh, of human or social services to the child abuse reporting hotline system created pursuant to section 25 blah 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 blah. The county department of human or social services shall subsequently follow the reporting requirement set forth in this section. So basically, they're forcing these officers to hand off the issue instead of being able to directly address what they're seeing. I'm really concerned about that section because I'm concerned that they're going to be forced to let certain individuals free or let go and just take down their information so that way they can report this report the crime instead of just taking these people into custody and then letting these individuals know. That's one of the concerns I have. The other thing that should be pointed out is page 14. Starting at line 11. This is the escort bureau. The escort bureau shall provide to each escort patron a written contract for services. The contract must clearly state the name and address of the escort and customer, the type of services to be performed, the length of time the services are to be performed, the total amount of money the services will cost the escort patron, and any special terms or conditions relating to the services to be performed. And then if you scroll down to line 21, each contract each contract must be numbered and utilized in the numerical sequence by the escort bureau. The contract must be signed by the escort patron and a copy furnished to him to the patron. The Escort Bureau shall also retain copies of all contracts, and the Escort Bureau shall transmit one copy of each contract executed in a calendar month to the local licensing authority no later than 10 days after the last day of the month. The local licensing authority shall treat the contracts transmitted to them as open public records. So these Johns are going to be public information. You go into an escort service, according to the Escort Bureau, they're going to require you to report all of your information, your contracts, saying what you did with this contract, with this escort, any of the sort of perform the services performed, etc., how much you paid. That will all be public information. If you so this is going to be a massive humiliation ritual, and I don't see how something like this can survive. I find this absolutely wild and shocking, to be quite honest with you, because especially when you compare how they've initially promoted this. This is called decriminalization, not legalization, because they're saying they're not providing regulatory guidelines. But I would say that right there is a regulatory guideline for services performed. I don't see how this is not quote unquote legalization.
Well, and what's so interesting to me too is the idea that this bill declares that decriminalizing commercial sexual activity among consenting adults is a matter of statewide concern and expressly preempts. This is the part I have the biggest problem with. Preempts
Mm-hmm.
statutory or home rule city, or county ordinances. So I'm a big believer in the decentralization of political power. You know, if a local community wants to do it, but another local community doesn't. I mean, this is when they made marijuana legal. They specifically said, well, it's up to each community to decide if they want to allow dispensaries or not. But this bill goes such a step further and says, no, you don't have a choice. Your little community has to have commercial sexual activity without any type of restriction whatsoever. So I think the bill's not going to make it anywhere, but it'll be very interesting to see. I know this is going to be the most hotly watched bill of the year for sure, and people are really curious of what's going to happen. But I don't think the Democrat leadership is happy with it, to be honest.
No, I agree. I think this is a absolutely ridiculous bill. And I had a conversation on Friday with a guy I work with, and he's not very political, but he does lean pretty far left. And he was just talking about this bill and how much of a joke Colorado is because we're introducing this law. So um, this is definitely another talking point when you're talking about Colorado has gone too far. If you're looking to talk to your friends and neighbors about why it's important to get active, get involved in the primary process as well as 2026 general election.
Definitely. So let's keep going here, folks. We're running out of time. Also on Thursday, if you're a rideshare person, this is a bill we've been warning you about in the House Finance Committee Thursday, March 12th, upon adjournment, House Bill 1043, the Transportation Network Company Discriminatory Practices. Won't spend a lot of time on it, but if you know anybody in the rideshare industry, this is one to pay attention to. Basically, it's going to increase fines. It's going to require rideshare companies to have monthly reports to the state government instead of once a year. They're going to basically have more civil penalties. It's going to make it more difficult to be a rideshare operator here in Colorado. So, not much more we have time for on this one, but any thoughts, Michael?
Not really. I'm really hoping this one doesn't go very far. Polis killed a very similar bill last year. Uh, and as I've said before, Uber was going to pull out of Colorado if it wasn't vetoed, just like Palantir did. So happy to see there is no prime sponsor on this one still, and hopefully this one gets killed in committee this week.
And then also on Thursday in the Senate Finance Committee, this is one of the biggest bills. I have a video coming out tomorrow with Natalie Menton. Folks, this one is an all hands on deck scenario in the Senate Finance Committee, Senate Committee Room 357. Definitely pay attention to this one, folks. Show up and speak out. This is the one bill that will eliminate Tabor refunds permanently here in Colorado and send to the black hole of K through 12 funding. And then any excess money is just going to go to the state government. So basically, it's going to say all of our Tabor refund money is going to be disappeared into this black hole of big government. And it's bad news, folks. Bad news. And you'll hear them talk about the 10-year thing, but that's just 10 years in terms of the 2% increase over those 10 years. And then there's nothing that stops this from happening once it's enacted. So absolutely horrible bill. But this bill will refer a ballot measure if it hopefully does not end up passing. But if it ends up passing, it'll be on the ballot this November. So we have to start the conversations now about this bill. That school enrollment's down. Schools have more money than ever before. Our tax people are struggling to take away our tax refunds under Tabor for permanently for this system is a horrible, horrible idea. It's not where we want to be as a state, folks. So that's all I really want to say on it now, because there's the video coming out with Natalie Menton on Free State Colorado on YouTube. Definitely check that out, and I'll post it all over social media as well, because this is a big bill that we have to get people to talk about. And Natalie does a great job of breaking it down in our video, and then also explaining why it's important people show up, especially as we're crafting this narrative and really getting the word out now for something that's potentially going to be on the ballot this November. Any thoughts, Michael?
Uh, we it's super late, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. LL and LL and M passed in November because we were lied to. They're going to try to, if this thing passes, they're going to try to lie and lie and lie. So we need to bring up the fact that they lied us into passing LL and MM because they had the funds in the first place. They never were, the program was never in a shortage. They just used LL and MM as an excuse to strip more of our table refunds from us. So this is a fantastic opportunity to go down to the Capitol and get in their face about why they thought it was okay to lie to us and why they want to use this as an excuse to lie once more.
Definitely. They want to eliminate the cap on Tabor that it creates our tax refunds, and just steal, steal, steal. So bad news, folks. Get out there, make your voices heard. Also on Thursday, two interesting bills, 1190 being heard, which is the alcohol beverage manufacturer sales. And actually, this is a good bill. It does create an expanded sales room permit, authorizing a manufacturer to operate a restaurant at the sales room, provide alcoholic beverages that are not manufactured by the permit holder. So it's expanding our ability to have a little bit more of a culture around alcohol, more sales. It's very limited in scope, don't get me wrong, but it's moving in the right direction, where we can say, okay, these breweries or distilleries, we're able to get them more options in terms of running their business, raises a limit, that they have here for their pub license and this and that. So it's very limited. It's a small win, but hopefully this bill will pass. We've seen so much so much opposition to the alcohol bills. If you remember last year, there was a bill that would have extended the 2 a.m. cutoff to 2:30, and people came out of the woodwork from like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. All these other groups came out of the woodwork to fight it. So we'll see if they do the same this year. But I do believe that, because I want to increase our freedom ultimately, and I think the alcohol the alcohol laws are so outdated in Colorado. We have an opportunity to marginally increase our freedom in that direction. So good bill. Hopefully get some good support on House Bill 1190. Any thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I think this is a great bill for the restaurant industry, especially the fact that that we do have some version of this just on a smaller scale, and if we could widen the group of businesses that are able to bring food onto their own properties, I think that's a net win. You're allowing more businesses to have more options to bring more revenue into revenue in, as well as introduce their product to a new group of individuals who might not have cared about their brewery or their winery, etc. I also really love the idea, if you scroll down just a smidge, you can see, yeah, here we go. The bill authorizes a vintner's restaurant licensee to sell and ship wine directly to an individual who has joined a winery club. To create a winery club, vintner's restaurant license must obtain and retain for as long as the club is active, each member's name, address, and which that makes sense just because you've got to know where you're going to ship your product. But I really like the idea of being able to have open up your own winery club. That's just going to give businesses more options, because there are winery clubs on a national level. But if we could start doing that at a local level, that's just going to allow wineries who have to grow the grapes, then process the grapes, turn it into wine, wait for the wine to age, more options to sell their wine to a whole lot of people, because it takes a lot of investment and a lot of years to grow wine.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Great bill. Hopefully it passes. And then we also got another one here. Gosh, this one is 1210. And then don't get me wrong, there's some mixed thoughts about this one, but it's this prohibits surveillance, price, and wage setting. Now, don't get me wrong, if these businesses are being sneaky and they're saying, hey, we know we can charge this guy more money than somebody else, I get that that might be unethical. Should it be illegal? I don't know about this using surveillance data to determine what people can pay or what they should be buying. Um, there's no fiscal note yet, but it's the surveillance data is defined in the bill as data that is obtained through observation, inference, come on, folks, or surveillance of consumers or workers and is related to personal characteristics, behaviors, or biometrics of the group. The bill prohibits discrimination against a consumer or worker through the use of automated decision systems used to engage in individualized price setting based on surveillance data regarding a consumer, individualized wage setting based on the surveillance data regarding a worker. So I get it, the automated part, that's maybe bad business practices, but is this really the proper role of government? An automated decision system is defined in the bill and includes in part information derived from any technology, software, program, machine-based system, or computational process that uses artificial intelligence or other data processing techniques to assist, inform, or replace human decision making. So of course they're afraid AI is going to discriminate, like Senator Baisley was talking about earlier. The bill specifies activities are not prohibited as individualized price or wage setting based on surveillance data regarding consumer or worker. The attorney general or district attorney may bring a civil action on behalf of the state against a person that violates the prohibition against individualized price or wage setting based on surveillance data to seek the imposition of civil penalties. In addition, a person aggrieved by a violation of the prohibition specified in the bill may bring a civil action. Blah 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 blah. I think this bill could have some bad intended consequences. We have in the consumer market these AI systems or digital surveillance systems, for lack of a better term, that track consumer behavior. And if they're going to use that decision, say, hey, listen, we're looking at this person's keeps looking at all these things online, and that's going to influence us trying to sell them something. That's not necessarily bad. What do they mean by discrimination? You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I think ultimately it's a bad bill, not the proper role of government, and has unintended consequences, especially when we're talking about emerging technologies and things like that. Any thoughts on this one, Michael?
I want to know why this isn't already illegal. If discrimination is illegal, why is it suddenly legal for AI to do it? So I don't understand the purpose of this bill in the first place because it seems to me like this quote unquote discrimination is already legal. We have CADA, which is the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, already in place. So I think that this bill is just kind of performing double work for something that's already illegal in Colorado. So I get not necessarily liking certain algorithms that are in place, but I think there's a better way to fight those algorithms than a bill like this.
So Thursday, if people are interested, they want to get more information, you can live stream those committee hearings, pay attention or testify if you have some information. Also on Thursday, last one here, House Energy and Environment Committee from Representative DeGraff. Had to bring it up because DeGraff is such a workhorse fighting for us on so many levels. And House Bill 1246 is a good one to give us some freedom regarding our utility companies. This bill would define a consumer-regulated electric utility as an electric generation supply system constructed for the sole purpose of serving new industrial, commercial, data center, or other non-residential loads not previously served by a provider of retail electric service. The bill states that the consumer regulated electric utility is not a public utility and is not subject to regulation by the Public Utilities Commission, PUC. They're not going to like that. Unless the consumer regulated electric utility elects to interconnect with the electric grid in a service territory of a public utility that's subject to regulation by a commission, a consumer regulated electric utility may construct and operate a facility within the existing public right of way, subject to applicable permitting, restoration, public safety requirements. So the idea, there's always talk about AI data centers and this and that coming into Colorado. They're saying, well, how's it going to affect our energy prices? Our energy system can't handle it. Our grid can't handle it. Blah blah blah. So this bill kind of says, well, hey, listen, what if these data centers bring their own electric companies and they're not tied into our grid, so you can't regulate them that way? I mean, it makes sense. I think it's a good thing. I'd love to see it expanded even further, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with this one. I'm very interested. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, if it's your own if it's your own company's electrical generation supply, I mean, I don't see why you should have to be subject to the PUC because you're not a public utility. As the bill states, you're not a public utility. Um, you're just providing more power for your own, data center, whatever you need power for on your own property or for your own company. So I don't necessarily see why these individual um, we'll say utilities are being regulated by the PUC in the first place. So good bill. It seems like unfortunately DeGraff is not having the greatest luck with some of his bills. For example, his task force was shot down, and we ripped Velasco earlier for some very stupid comments because she wanted to play victim after she was incredibly disrespectful to a lot of people. That being said, Velasco was the only Democrat that supported the task force, and as DeGraff was saying, the it was a clean energy bill. If anything, it's helped support clean energy because it was supposed to, because the entire purpose of the task force was to help harden the grid for solar, for all avenues of energy, which included solar and wind. So uh, I'd love to see this bill pass, but I don't think we're going to see it.
Yep, it's crazy. So bills we're tracking, folks. So now we're just going to go through a little rapid fire list here of all the bills we're tracking this year and just give you an update. So maybe a bill that hasn't been scheduled yet, but you want to find out when it's going to be heard. We're going to go over that right now. You ready, Michael, for some lightning round here?
Let's go for it, Brandon.
All right, I'll start here with the first one. Good bill, repeal retail delivery fees being heard this week, Tuesday, March 10th in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee. We'll keep you updated on what happens with that one.
House Bill 1037 banned government purchase of personal data from third party. We can see last it was introduced to the judiciary, but as of now, we heard testimony, but this bill is waiting for action. So they have not actually introduced this bill yet, and we're waiting. As far as I know, we are still waiting on a date. And Brandon, I don't know if you know of a specific date, but these are the options. Each what you're seeing in front of us is the option for a possibility of this bill being heard. So please continue to discuss or to send emails to people like Rep Caldwell, Rep Flanell, Rep Kelty, etc., and speak your piece. Let them know what's going on. Brandon, you might have a couple Democrats that you might want us to talk to as potential options to have individuals send an email as a constituent and let them know your concerns about this bill not passing.
That's a great bill, House Bill 1037. And sorry, Michael, kind of threw you a curveball here. I just put all the upcoming dates for the House Judiciary Committee. So the House Judiciary Committee, as Michael said, did go through the debate and the testimony phase. There's still an opportunity for amendments and then action only, they call it. So I'll be please pay attention to Free State Colorado on social media because as soon as this one comes up or scheduled, it's going to be a massive call to action that we reach out to these key people and tell them to support this bill. This is a phenomenal bill. The Fourth Amendment is not for sale act, and it has a really good chance of passing, but is facing some challenges from both some pro law enforcement Democrats and some big government Republicans, for lack of a better term. So I'll keep you updated on this one for sure. But yeah, that's the story with this one. Not scheduled yet in those committees. And then House Bill 1048, folks, this is the back to school sales tax holiday. I think it's a good bill. I'd love to see Colorado start having some sales tax holidays, maybe around certain things. But this is a very narrow bill, but nonetheless, it's some tax relief. It'll be heard in appropriations. It did pass the House Committee on Finance, which I was a little bit shocked on. So that's a good news. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated when this one actually gets back to the House floor.
Senate Bill 22 challenges meeting 2030 emissions reduction goals. This is a good bill with bipartisan support to help with affordability in Colorado, particularly retaining to certain climate agenda goals that the state legislature and the PUC has put forth. So let's hope that this one gets a date. No date as of today, though.
Another good bill is the Retail Theft Prevention Program from Representative Woog. This one actually has a chance with Representative Espinoza, Democrat, on the bill. But basically, retail theft in Colorado is getting out of control, and we have some soft on crime policies that don't punish these people. So Tuesday, March 24th, this bill is heard on House Judiciary Committee. We'll talk more as we get closer.
House Bill 1140, local government impact hearings. This is a bill to really help add an additional committee to bring in more stakeholder involvement, particularly from the local level. This bill will be heard tomorrow in the second. It's This bill will be heard in the House floor, and it will be heard through second reading.
House Bill 1128, the limitation on gender transition procedure claims, of course, being heard Monday in the House State Affairs Committee at 1:30 p.m. We talked about that one earlier.
House Bill 1105 discusses adoption and information with pregnant persons. We discussed this one a little bit ago. To be heard on Tuesday in the House Health and Human Services Committee.
House Bill 1053, the disconnection from a statutory municipality. So if an agricultural property wants to not be part of that city anymore, that's a good thing. This is going to be heard on Thursday, March 12th. Just didn't have the capacity to talk about it tonight. We're already over on time, but a good bill from Representative Slaw.
House Bill 1250, procedures related to civil asset forfeiture, a great bill from Reps DeGraff and Bacon. No date as of today.
Consumer regulated electric utilities, just talked about that from Rep DeGraff, 1246 this Thursday, March 12th.
House, House Bill 1083, Protect Female Sports Act. We talked about this one a little bit ago. Another Scott Bottoms bill to be heard tomorrow in the House State Civic, Military, and Veteran Affairs Committee.
Constitutional carry of a handgun, great bill from Representative Flannel and Representative Barone. House Bill 1212, no date yet. We'll keep you updated on this one.
House Bill 1209, temporary decrease statutory property tax revenue limits, to be heard tomorrow in the state, excuse me, not tomorrow, but Tuesday in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee.
House Bill 11 or 111, 111, a no date yet, protections against child rape, to increasing the penalty on child rapists. Unfortunately, Colorado's top state for trafficking children and human trafficking and all the bad things. So this is a good bill to put these criminals and lock them up.
Senate Bill 108, transparency of legislative groups' money, to be heard on Tuesday the 17th in the Senate State Veteran and Military Affairs Committee.
Senate Bill 91, the exclusion of newspaper deliverers as employees. How cool would it be to see newspaper delivery boys working again, because they don't have to have all the strings that come with being an employee in Colorado. No date yet. Good bill.
Senate Bill 90, exempt critical infrastructure from right to repair, brought to you by Carson Snyder and Rep Hartsook. No date as of today.
Another good bill, 1190. We just talked about the alcohol beverage manufacturer sales Thursday, March 12th. Moving into the bad bills, and there's way more of these, folks. Way more of these. We're going to give you some updates here.
House Bill 1033, expanding the Colorado Cottage Food Act. This is the Tamale Act, where a bunch of stuff got added into the bill itself. Brandon made a great video about how it went from a fantastic bill to a really bad bill. It has advanced to appropriations, but we don't have a date as of yet.
Senate Bill 5, the rights violation and immigration enforcement. Basically, it's going to go into the House now. It did pass out of the Senate just recently, doubling down on Colorado sanctuary state for illegal immigrants.
House Bill 1271, alcohol impact and recovery enterprises. This is basically, they're going to try to add another fee, aka, which is, as we all know, in reality, a tax that tries to work around Tabor. It will be heard Tuesday, March 17th in House Health and Human Services.
House Bill 1275. This is the law enforcement identification immigration training requirements, saying anybody who is a federal immigration officer couldn't be a local law enforcement officer, and prohibiting peace officer. There's just basically the goal is to make Colorado more of a sanctuary state for illegal immigrants. That's why I think it's a bad bill. No date yet.
Senate Bill 116, property tax modifications. No date as of today.
Yeah, they're going to try and raise property taxes, basically. House Bill 1276, protect the safety of individuals who are immigrants. Another illegal immigration bill. No date yet.
House Bill 1255, social media duty to report and search warrants. This is a part of a Senate Bill 86 that was killed, and we saw this portion of last year's Senate Bill 86 brought back, where they just brought back a portion of that bill in 1255. It will be heard Wednesday, March 18th in the House Judiciary.
Yeah, absolutely horrible bill, turning into social media companies into surveillance agents of the state. Senate Bill 4, expanding the list of petitioners for red flag gun confiscation orders. It is going to be heard on seconds this week. We haven't seen a lot of second readings on Mondays. Usually they start with thirds. Monday's so packed, they usually don't get to it, but expect this towards the end of the week, probably. Senate Bill 4 to be heard on the House floor on seconds.
House Bill 1233, modifying certain tax expenditures. Another bad bill where they're trying to come after our taxes, to be heard tomorrow in House Finance.
Yeah, and then 1222 and 1221, we talked about those at the beginning, basically raising taxes on businesses and corporations. But let's skip ahead to 1054, protections for worker safety. This is the worse than OSHA bill from Manny Rootnell, of course, just going after blue collar jobs here. This is did pass the House Committee on Business Affairs and Labor, and it's going to appropriations.
House Bill 1043, Transportation Network Company discriminatory practices, to be heard Thursday, March 12th in House Finance. We talked about this one a little bit ago.
House Bill 1011 transfers of certain pet animals, basically banning pet sales in Colorado, is now passed the House and is into the Senate. So no date yet.
House Bill 1005. This is Senate Bill 5 from last year, where they're trying to kill the Labor Peace Act, which was thankfully vetoed by Governor Polis. Will be heard tomorrow on thirds in the House.
Senate Bill 18, the legal protections for the dignity of minors. Basically, this is a bill, the one that got amended, but nonetheless still a bad bill. It passed the Senate, now in the House, going to Judiciary. No date.
Senate Bill 32. This is a anti-medical freedom bill. This will be heard on seconds tomorrow in the House.
House Bill 1001 did pass the House, is moving to the Senate on second reading sometime this week. Don't know if they'll get to it on Monday, but this is the bill that basically overrides local control, forcing high density housing in communities that don't want it.
1148. We talked about this one a little bit ago. Protections for youth on social media, to be heard in the House Judiciary tomorrow.
Prohibit the 3D printing guns. This is 1144. Did pass the House, is going to be assigned in the Senate. And the Senate State Affairs Committee has not yet been assigned a date yet.
1137, requirements for campaign consultants. We've talked about this one a couple weeks ago. Will be heard tomorrow on seconds in the House.
House Bill 1126, the requirements for firearm dealers. This would absolutely destroy FFLs that are small, family owned. Maybe it's operating out of your house because there's all these new requirements where you have to have direct video feeds into the state government, etc. It's supposed to be heard this week in the House. Don't think they'll get to it on Monday, but it's scheduled to be heard.
House Bill 1113, modifications to elections. Nasty little bill that passed the House and it's introduced to the Senate and assigned to the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. No date as of yet.
Another bad one, allowing the minimum lot sizes for subject jurisdictions. Again, it's overriding local control to force, small little shanty towns across the Front Range here. House Bill 1114 passed the House onto the Senate.
1084, voted for transparency in ballot measures, passed the House and onto the Senate.
97, of course, the prostitution bill being heard this Wednesday in Senate Judiciary.
1211, regulation of broadband services, will be heard Wednesday in the House Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee.
Yeah, just didn't have the bandwidth to talk about this one, pun intended. House Bill 1210, the prohibit surveillance price and wage setting, being heard this Thursday.
1207, disclosure of demographic workforce data. House Committee, it passed the House Committee on Business Affairs and later, and it was referred to appropriations.
1206, the improved funding to support development. This is going to increase taxes in communities for low income housing or whatever, whatever you want to call it, being heard March 16th. We'll talk about this one more next week.
Revenue classification of taxpayer bill of rights. Senate Bill 42 has passed the Senate Committee on Finance and referred as amended to appropriations.
Authorize electronic ballot return. Still not scheduled for a date yet, but yeah, digital voting basically.
Senate Bill 131, sports betting protections, will be heard Tuesday in the Senate Finance.
Another bad bill, House Bill 1055. It did pass the Committee on Education. It's going to appropriations, but basically, it's states taxpayers or taxpayers in Colorado subsidizing the museums and this and that. Just more of that kind of thing. Bad news.
Senate Bill 135, state public K through 12 education funding. We talked about this one a little bit ago. To be heard on Thursday in Senate Finance.
1289, we didn't get to this one. We'll talk about it a bunch next week. It's going to be heard on March 16th. This is the bill that's going to increase taxes or create taxes on gold coins, silver coins, bullion, any of that kind of thing, and tons of other tax implications as well. Massive tax increase bill by removing these tax exemptions, basically, to raise taxes. Horrible bill. We'll be talking about a lot next week. Killed bills, gone but not forgotten. The good, the bad, and the ugly that have died this year. So go for it, Michael.
Senate Bill 107, modify Colorado Open Records Act, thankfully was killed.
Parent penalties for a minor using electric bicycle. This one did get killed. House Bill 1125.
Senate Bill 1012, consumer protections to promote fair market pricing, was also killed.
Senate Bill 86, the cigar excise tax rate, also killed.
Senate Bill 106, opt out of mail ballot packets for elections, was unfortunately killed.
House Bill 1072, the right to firearm possession and eliminating red flag gun confiscation, of course, postponed indefinitely in the House this last week.
Senate Bill 1108, Colorado Bureau of Investigation access federal fingerprint search service, the Rich and Hartsook bill that we were really railing on. It was the sponsors ended up killing this one themselves.
On 1085, the pregnant person do not abort form was killed, of course.
Senate Bill 28, removal of wind energy from state energy goals, was unfortunately killed.
1021, the Second Amendment Protection Act, of course, postponed indefinitely.
House Bill 1149, legislative committee testimony required oath, was thankfully killed. Unfortunately, this one will likely be heard next year.
Senate Bill 27, the Parental Equality and Child Empowerment Act, the Peace Act from Linda Zamora Wilson, was unfortunately postponed indefinitely as well.
Just like 1082, the Children Are Not for Sale Act was unfortunately killed. Thankfully, we can vote on this one in November.
1049, the prohibit use of personal identifying feature, was a good bill mostly, but that bill didn't make it either.
Unfortunately, Weinberg's 90-day legislative session bill was killed.
And Weinberg's bill to limit the number of bills introduced by the General Assembly members from bring it down from 5 to 3 was a good bill and didn't make it, of course.
As well as Rep. Weinberg's expanded deduction for retirement benefits was killed. That will be a very interesting one to bring up in Bob Marshall's race during the general.
Definitely. The bill from Tatone to create taxes on vacant residential property also stopped in committee, thankfully.
House Bill 1129, gas utility service, which was going to protect our gas utility services, was unfortunately killed.
1097 from Baron on being able to register and drive military surplus vehicles would have expanded our consumer choice and more freedom, but unfortunately didn't make it to second year in a row.
And as well as Scott Bottom's safeguard minors from sex altering interventions, which was unfortunately postponed indefinitely.
That's all, folks. That's what we got for this week. Thanks for sticking with us for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Hopefully, you had some good information and yeah, a lot happening at our state capitol, but you're not really finding it anywhere else. So I really appreciate you joining us on this journey to see what's happening in our state government and hopefully have a voice and push back against all this madness that we're seeing come out from under the Gold Dome. But any final thoughts, Michael?
Hey, take it to them. Sign up and testify anyway. Take it to them. Make them pay. Look up some viral testimonies and viral responses to certain testimonies by particularly a one Tom Sullivan. You can look up some videos. They don't like it when they get called out, and you can call them out in the most mild way and they will flip out. So take it to these tyrants. Don't stop fighting. Let them know that you are watching what are doing, and you are peacefully going to do everything in your power to make sure that they do not win. And just because they might have won a battle does not mean they're going to win the war. So keep on fighting, guys.
Well said, sir. And yeah, expose it. Let them know that you're watching, that you're going to alert their voters to how they're voting in the state capitol, and it could potentially come back to bite them in November. That's all these politicians care about is their career. And so yeah, let's push back and keep it going. Keep up the fight, people. Great to see everybody, and we'll talk to you again next week. So awesome.